with Arnold Dean. Hot talk, great guests. Weeknights at 6:15 from WTIC, Hartford.
CBC Radio, Canada's public broadcast.
Try Carter's Little Liver Pill. Good advice.
Good mornings only on KCMO Kansas City. It's 8 o'clock.
When you're tuned to CDS Radio.
This is the DX Central from the Static Podcast.
From Studio B of the North Shore Studios in Mandeville, Louisiana.
And welcome to another edition of the DX Central from the Static Podcast. I'm your host, Lloyd Van Horn, bringing you another episode of DX Central Re-Live, our audio broadcast of our DX Central live stream. Here this morning in Studio A in our North Shore Studios. I'm actually doing a little video editing this morning, but wanted to get this out because this was a big episode of the live stream. We actually went way over on our time from what we usually do, but there was a lot to get to. The big topic of discussion was this week's solar storms and the Latin DX that resulted from that. So many people in our shoutouts with new countries, new stations left and right. So the results really speak for themselves. It was just a jam-packed week of DX. I did more DX this week than I've done in months on the AM side of things, just because this is what I trained for, right? This is, you guys know me. I'm a Latin American DX aficionado, and so when I'm given the opportunity to do that, we got to go after it. So, so a lot of discussion around that and what brought that in. The hour 2 discussion was around AM DX antennas, and this actually spilled into the third hour as well. But AM DX antennas, there's so many different options out there: mag loops, CASs, DCASs, super loops, verticals, beverages, bogs. How do you decide what to do? So we talk a little bit about some of the main ones that are out there. We can't cover every antenna, obviously, but we talk about some of the main ones that are out there. Some of the pros and cons of each. What do you need to know as far as like how much space you're going to need, costs, is there any of this you're going to have to build yourself, things like that. We talk about that in the live stream. And we also launched a new challenge. Now, we've been doing this theme-based challenge for almost a year now, right? Like the 50 kilowatt challenge, the stage challenge, the gray line challenge this last couple of weeks. But we're getting back to our roots for this challenge for the next week. We're going back to what we used to do, which was a range of frequencies, in this case, 910 to 930 kilohertz, and just log as many stations on those 3 frequencies as you possibly can. And so, in fact, 910 was our very first frequency challenge we did back in like 2021. When we first started this thing, it was 910 kilohertz. So, an opportunity for folks to maybe flesh out their logbook a little bit by focusing on a frequency range that they hadn't spent any time with recently, like really diving into. So we'll be launching that in this episode. And we also look at those 3 frequencies to see what target stations could be available for you. Down south, Latin America, East Coast, West Coast, Central, where are some stations that kind of stick out? So you'll want to make sure you stay in for that in the third hour. So a lot to get to in this episode. So sit back, relax, take us with you as you go about your day. This is another episode of DX Central Re-Live, Season 6, Episode 6.
Have a neighbor with a fluorescent light that sprays RFI across half the dial? Or maybe the family next door just installed LED dimmers that make your AM band sound like a Tesla coil? At Noise Stoppers, we understand. Our certified specialists arrive on site, identify the source, and, using our patented neighborhood power interruption process, restore peace and quiet to your airwaves.
Hey, pal, I got a work order here from the power company. Looks like you're due for a temporary shutdown. What? But I paid my bill. Look, I'm just doing my job here. You can go take it up with the head office, buddy.
And just like that, silence. You're free to DX in bliss, with signal-to-noise ratios not heard since the Cold War.
I used to hear my neighbor's treadmill on 740 kilohertz. Last night, I heard Nicaragua. Thanks, Noise Stoppers.
Now the only buzz around my house is me after a few beers to celebrate all the DX I am getting. Thanks. Thanks, stop noisers.
Noise stoppers, turning interference into inner peace. Call now and we'll handle the hum so you can chase the skip.
It's a Friday night, rolling in the North Shore, setting frequencies right. AM and FM, the airwaves collide. DX Central Live, where the signals can't hide. Tuning in the static, chasing down the sounds. Every single signal is magic we have found. All radios hum, the chatters all agree. DX Central Live is the place to be. Folks in the chat, shout out your call. From east to west, we're breaking down the walls. It's the magic of the night, where frequencies rise. Join us now on DX Central Live.
From the Gulf South
to your corner of the world,
this is DX Central Live.
Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
And for the second time this week, it's DX Central Live from Studio A here in the North Shore Studios in beautiful Mandeville, Louisiana. We bring you live DX tips, tricks, and more. It's episode 6 from season 6. So, we got to pull all the stops out tonight as we roll on through another season of not just the live show, but also our challenges. We've got a fun one in store for you guys. We're going back to our roots. Going back to how we started this whole thing. So I'm very excited about that. What a week. All right. What an absolute week this week. It was a banger. It was a bop. It was, it's the kind of week that as a person who is addicted to, is that the word I want to use? Okay. Yep. Addicted to AMDX from Latin America. As someone who is an aficionado of the Southern Signal, this is the week that you look for. This is what we train for, as they say. This is what we train for. What a just amazing week, and a lot of stuff that we've heard before was there, but maybe louder than we've heard it before, or we were able to use some of the information that we had or some of the signals that we had to help others get those stations, which was always one of my favorite things to do during these kinds of events, is to help others get those new countries in the log, and you guys got a bunch of them. So make sure you submit your shout outs, because I want to get a bunch of passports stamped tonight. But also we did get some new ones too. We did get some new stations in the log this week, so we'll talk about that. We do have a new challenge coming up tonight, so we're going to say bye-bye to the gray line, and we're going to open things up in at the same time we're going to tighten things down, so we'll talk about that. Hour number 1, we're going to focus on this week and the solar storms and what we had. We had 3 CMEs, 2 G4 storms. We're still under a G1 right now, tonight. So we'll be taking a look here in our first hour, our first DX session coming up here in a moment. We'll be doing some looking to see our Latin American beacon frequencies, how those are sounding, if we're getting anything tonight. I haven't checked yet, so I don't know how the conditions look, so we'll look. Hour 2, we're going to talk about AMDX antennas. And there's some that you guys are probably thinking about, and then there's others like I had never thought of a particular kind of antenna as being AMDX worthy, but I'm going to try it out, and so we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about a couple of different antennas that we've used here at DX Central and that others are using, and talk some theory, light theory about those and what you might be able to expect from them. We're also going to be looking at Bill Hepburn's forecast for FM DX and getting that in there. And we're going to be talking, also speaking of FMDX, we're going to be talking about some Aurora FMDX that occurred this week up north of us. So we'll be looking at some FM list maps to kind of talk about that. And we're going to point you, because I've never experienced FM Aurora DX because I'm in the South. And so we're going to be pointing you guys to a resource that you can use to get more information about that. If you live up north and you want to be able to DX FM Aurora, we're going to give you some tips and point you to places that'll teach you about that. We're also going to talk a bit about our new challenge and some target stations you'll be able to try to target for this new challenge. We'll be diving into that. Plus, we got your shout outs to get to. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of them. They're probably going to be paragraphs long. We're going to want to have some clips to play in there, I'm sure. So make sure you get those in. dxchallenges.com/shoutout. And while you're in the mood, while you're at our website, dxchallenges.com, you'll probably want to also go ahead and register if you haven't done so already. That way you can take part in the challenges, because this week's going to be a fun one. Can't wait to show that one to you guys. Let's go ahead and get started with some DX, though. I want to see how conditions look for tonight. This first DX session is brought to you by the National Radio Club, nationalradioclub.org. Go there and get information about how to become a member and take advantage of some of the awesome publications that they have and discounts on those publications that you can get by membership. DX News Member Bulletin, things like that. So this is one of those resources. After an event like we just had, you better believe I'll be checking the DX News for all the loggings that people were getting international stuff, so I can see what all was out there. Maybe there's something I missed. Maybe there's some stuff that I didn't think of. Just didn't occur to me to go after. And the DX News and the DX Monitor will be a good place to look for that stuff, because people will be submitting their loggings, and maybe we can all be like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, next time I'm chasing after those guys. We start out tonight. Since we're looking south, we're going to start on the big one. This is the Shortwave Central Kiwi. This is our one around the corner, and has the elevated 25 by 72 foot CAS antenna pointing right at the Panamanian-Colombian border. And let's see how conditions look. We're going to start off here on 1510, our usual first stop on the Latin American Beacon Tour, listening for Radio Monumental in Ecuador. Going back through the chat, seeing what you guys have been talking about. See our good friend, Mr. Jeff Emmel's in the house. Hey, Jeff. We're going to be talking about your tip of an antenna here in a bit in our second hour tonight. Friend Tim Tromp up in Michigan, the DX magnet himself, says he probably has years worth of listening from his auroral recordings from the week. Yeah, this is one that you're definitely going to want to. And Kaz says same thing. Yeah, this is one. If you had recordings, you're going to want to hold on to these, because even after you've squeezed all the DX out, this is the kind of stuff you want to take a memory lane stroll down later on in life of how great was that opening, right?
DX Central Live, top of the hour alert.
All right, we look to the south. We're on 1510 right now. Monumental is in there. I do hear them. They're not super strong. Let's go to my second one that we usually go to. This is 910 kilohertz. We'll bounce around to a couple others here, but I'll probably turn the mic off here since we're getting close to the top of the hour.
eso, pues estamos más de el tema de hospital, están en su interior. ¿Cómo estás? Recientemente he visto las personas toman una foto de niños que dan al inicial de la música,
de este crimen. Hasta este momento la conocer información sobre este crimen. El cadáver fue levantado por sus familiares trasladados o
Muchas gracias por la información, señor Hernández. Buenas tardes. Podamos estar una vez más en la Costa Chica, en Guerrero. El cuerpo lo llevan a Metepec.
Sí, Pepe, la gente levanta paro y plan. Los maestros tomaron carretas de la autopista. La secretaria de la sección 21, Jenny Pérez, reiteró la amenaza de boicot al deporte.
Vayamos a nuestros estados, a reorganizarnos y salir solamente a las calles con mayor fuerza, porque no nos dejan otra opción, porque el gobierno, aunque se dice un gobierno de puertas abiertas, ha sido un gobierno que no nos soluciona.
Recuerdan, según el Zócalo, a un día de la marcha Z, instalan barreras de concreto y redoblan la presencia policíaca. La presidenta Claudia Sheinbaum acusa a fuerzas opositoras de estar detrás de la marcha. Ante estos micrófonos, Edson Andrade, quien es participante en la marcha Z, denunció amenazas en su contra tras ser mencionado en la mañanera por Miguel Ángel Peló, el encargado de la sección Infode.
Muchos mensajes muy desafortunados, no solamente comentarios, sino mensajes directos diciéndome que mañana seguramente voy a aparecer en bolsas de basura, no le extraño a mis papás si mañana no regreso de la marcha, o si de pronto salgo en los siguientes días y ya no regreso, o si encuentran mi cabeza como ha pasado en otros estados de la República, o si encuentran solamente una parte de mi cuerpo y que me abracen porque será la última vez que me ven, este tipo de mensajes.
Este la hizo la paga y Ricardo Salinas no podrá evitar el cobro de impuestos, así lo sentencia la presidenta.
Aquí no hay ningún autoritarismo, sino sencillamente el cálculo de lo que se debe a lo que tiene beneficios y es que pagan. Si no pagan, pues también hay procedimientos para garantizar que paguen.
El gobernador de Michoacán, Alfredo Ramírez Bedoya, revela el asesinato de otros dos implicados en el crimen del alcalde de Uruapan, Carlos Manzo.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and I'll mute him here because they're kind of they're underneath. You heard the Mexican national anthem. That is XEANT signing off. La Voz de las Huastecas. I'm probably butchering it. But they're one of the indigenous stations. They're on 770. So this is around the time they sign off. Usually it's around 0100 UTC. And they have a very long sign off. We actually have it posted on our YouTube channel here. If you want to find it easily, very, very easy, you can go to dxchallenges.com/resources, go to our unique sounds of Latin America section, and there's a link for it right there for the video. You can go listen to the entire sign off. They do it in multiple languages, Spanish and several indigenous languages. They have a anthem and all kinds of stuff. Like it's awesome. I'm a chaser of these indigenous stations from Mexico. I love all the stations out of Mexico, but especially those from the indigenous grouping of stations because it's very, very unique programming that you don't hear anywhere else. We also had La FAMA in there from Colombia was in on 770. Also heard them paralleling over on 910, which is actually the country of San Andres. Well, it's the islands of San Andres and Providencia, which are part of Colombia, but from a DX perspective, we actually count those as different countries because they're kind of far away from the mainland So they count as a separate country. They do it in ham radio on the IRCA country list that's counted as separate. So those are treated as a separate country. If you hear La FAMA on 910, it's not Colombia, it's San Andres y Providencia that you have logged, and that's another country for you. And several folks got them this week, and I'm very, very excited about that. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about all the stuff that was going on this week, and I'm going to talk to you about some of what I was doing there, kind of bouncing around some of my beacon frequencies, because one of those questions that came up a lot, I know Dennis was talking about it in the Slack, Stephanie, some other folks were talking in the Slack about what are some frequencies when you have this kind of Latin night going on, what are some frequencies you can take a look at? We're going to talk about some of those and some of the different countries that might be there and what to listen for, and how that kind of played out this week. We'll also be ready later on this hour to launch our next challenge for the Medium Wave Frequency Challenge. So don't go anywhere, my friends. More DX Central Live is heading your way right after this.
DX Central, because we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
Del rancho con su antena al cielo, un desert de radio bajo el firmamento, buscando señales más allá del suelo, de un nuevo estado buscando el acento. Con su radio en mano y su alma paciente, escuchando el susurro del viento corriente, latidos lejanos en ondas fervientes, un viaje distante en la noche silente. Desde lejos una voz se alzó, desde otro estado un mensaje llegó, bajo la luna su radio grabó el eco de un sueño que aquí cumplió. En el aire nocturno se oyen los cuentos.
From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
It's DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios, baby. Here in Mandeville, Louisiana. We're feeling the vibe this week. We've been feeling the vibe all week with the Latin American DX pouring in thanks to Old Soul and throwing in the Aurora even down here. Let me see if I can find it. I have a picture here that I posted, I believe. Everybody posted their stuff on social media, right? So at this point, it's kind of ubiquitous looking at another Aurora picture of like just a red sky. But this is Southeast Louisiana, and you don't expect to see that all that much down here. And yet we got in on the action. I could barely see it with my eyes. Definitely was, as you would expect, brighter on the camera than with your eyeballs. But there it is. Pull this over here so you guys can see. There it goes. That's what we had this week. What was that, Tuesday night? The peak of it all. When we were doing our live stream. That was right after I ended the live stream, and because the band had kind of died, and now I know why, because we were under the influence of the Aurora even here. So this is just down the road from me a bit. Yeah, we got in on the action here in Southeast Louisiana, which is something that I never thought when I moved back home. I never thought I'll probably see an Aurora while I'm living here. Now I've had two. One was kind of This one was, you saw, it was pretty bright. That was unedited too. That was raw. That's exactly when I took the picture, and that was it. No coloring, no filters, no adjustments of contrast or anything. That's exactly what I snapped. So pretty cool. Let's do some shout outs before we get to our talking about the DX that we had this week. Let's talk about what you guys heard this week. So we'll start with some shout outs.
Shout out loud, hear the call for every signal, big or small, from AM to FM from C to C. We celebrate the ones who slag the ID. Shout out loud, let it be known, you're never DXing all alone. Through the static we found our way. Shout outs making waves today.
Since I moved back to Louisiana, I just realized this as I was sitting here playing the intro. Since I moved back to Louisiana 4 years ago, 2021, right? I've seen 2 aurora nights and 6 inches of snow. The only one hurricane. Damn it. Why did I have to say that? Now... crap. Anywho. All right. Shout out time for our friends. You can get yours in dxchallenges.com/shoutout. I know you got some this week. Most everybody did. Most everybody. So by all means, throw them into the form and let us know what you heard, and we'll get you some horn of victory and whatnot. And so I'm actually gonna save Sean. He's not in the stream tonight. He's gonna be watching the replay. He's got a jazz gig. He's a musician. He's a drummer, so he's playing a jazz gig tonight. You can never rely on drummers to show up for any show, but there he is on that one. So hitting with you, Sean. That's a little musician humor there. So we'll come back to his here in a second because it's pretty long because he had himself a week. And how many times have I said that about Sean? He had himself a week. Well, sure did. But we're gonna get to some of you guys here as well. So let's start with our friend David Pete up in Maine. David said, just gonna list them. 3 new Puerto Ricans, 840 WXEW, 740 WIAC, and 1280 WCMN. Puerto Rico is one of the ones that I was just I don't know why they weren't there this week. Them, Dominican Republic, and El Salvador never showed up. The only 3 that I was like, surely they've got to be there, right? The only 3 that I went looking for that I did not hear. 3 new Dominican Republic stations for David, though. 1090 Radio Armistad, 720 Radio Norte, and 690 Radio Guarachita. Hope I said that right. 4 new Ecuadorians, 580 Union Radio, 700 Radio Sucre, 870 Radio Cristal, and 830 Radio Huancavica. 2 Colombians, 610 Alerta in Bogota, 780 Radio Viva Pasto. 2, he heard a second Brazilian. This is when I saw your log on the Slack channel on this one, David. I went after it. 700 NASA Radio in Brazil for his second Brazilian. Radio Vision in Tumbes, Peru on 1090 for his first Peruvian. Guatemala 1570 Radio Villa. I love how that guy does the imaging on that one. That was his first Guatemalan and his first Panamanian Radio Adventista as well. So new countries, new Latin American stations. So the first time tonight of probably quite a few, we're going to be stamping some passports. Passport's gonna be running out of room tonight, so we're gonna have to find us a nice blank page on there. There we go. Passport stamped. That was 3, in case you were keeping up, that was 3 new countries for David. Peru and Radio Vision and Tumbes. Guatemala 1570 Radio Villa, and Panama Radio Adventista. So awesome job, man. We're also going to give you, because it was, get ready to hear this song a lot tonight. You're going to hear this song a lot. There's a lot of Latin American stations go around. There you go. All right. Well done, David. I'm going to go ahead and mark that as heard. David Harden in Georgia. Persistence pays. WKJK in Louisville, Kentucky is the dominant station on 1080. Still, there were stations in the background. Always give those stations time, because the dominant's going to fade. It's not a matter of when or if. It's a matter of when. I got that backwards. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when that dominant station is going to fade and the other ones beneath it are going to come up. And you just hope that coincides with something identifiable. It took much time over several days to catch a station in the background, but recently KRLD in Dallas came up and caught an ID. See? And 3 minutes later, I heard a positive ID from Radio Cadena Habana in Cuba. I think there is at least one station in the background that needs to be ID'd. I'm intended challenge, but I'm determined to get it, he says. Absolutely, man. So we got you some new logs to saw in there, my friend. Both Northern David and Southern David getting in on the action this week. Well done, gentlemen, both of you. All right. Our friend Neil Kazaros in the chat here this evening. And we're going to be talking about his famous antenna in our second hour. Can't wait to talk about that because you guys know I'm a Kaz junkie when it comes to the antenna world. So he got in on the action as well this week. 580 Ecuador. That's Union Radio. Getting past WILL and WGAC with music parallel to stream. 810 South Carolina, WWOS Walterboro atop with the ID after religious programming. I think I had them briefly in this week. I couldn't. I was trying to pull up the ZNS live stream, and I was having some issues with that at the time, so I didn't know if it was them or ZNS. But I think I had Walterboro in there too. 1030 Ecuador, underneath XEQR. Ooh, parallel their stream. That was HC0096. 1100 Peru, Chicleo, and that is I think that's Radio Vision, isn't it? That outlet on 1100, yeah, I think it is. Got 30 seconds of female preacher parallel the stream during a nice fade up when Colombian Pest faded, and I've been after this one since noting the carrier during winter AUs, one of my best catches ever. Yeah, that's further down. So when you look at the a lot of us that have heard Tumbes, Peru. Tumbes is actually like there's a little hook of Peru that kind of comes up right there by Ecuador, and Tumbes is up in that way, and it's right there on the coastline, right up in that little hook up there. So it's as Peruvians go. If you're going to get a Peruvian, that's probably one of the easier ones to get is the one there in Tumbes because it's a little higher in latitude. This one here, Chicleo, is way further down. It's further down the coastline, right there on the Pacific coastline still, but it's way further down. So that one is going to be a lot tougher, man. So that's an awesome catch. He also got 1340 Georgia WIFN Atlanta, top KGHM in auroral condition. So a graveyard auroral catch at that. So we get a new Latin American station here for our friend Kaz. And we also got some new logs in there. There you go. There we go. Well done, man. I don't even have to ask what antenna you were using, man. All right. Next up, let's get to Neil. Well, you guys are definitely packing in the shout outs today. DXchallenges.com/shoutouts. If you haven't done so already, get those in, and we'll get you some love here in the show as well. Let me see if I missed anything up here. No, okay. All right, so we're gonna go with our friend Neil Wolfish in Ontario. I didn't manage to hear any new graveyarders during the Graveyard Challenge in October, but did manage a new one this morning. And my first ever from Mississippi, although it's almost Tennessee, and it still counts as Mississippi though. Especially on that end of the state. 1240 to be MSO in South Haven, Mississippi. So that's there's that auroral conditions, right? That's putting you down further south. I tried this week on the graveyards to pull something out. It was just too much there. I heard a lot of Spanish though. I also managed two other new ones during the Gray Line Challenge. 1120 WSME in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. 1280 WZXI in Lancaster, Kentucky. And he does have a clip here for us. This is WMSO in South Haven, Mississippi. There you go. Just that one little bit of an ID in there was enough to be able to pull it in, man. Sometimes that's all you get, and that's all you need. You just need it to show up and be discernible. So well done, my friend. We get you a new log. We're going to break out the chainsaw. We're going to have to oil this chainsaw up tonight because it's going to be toast by the time the night is over. Next up on our list here, well done, Neil Wolfish. Next up on our list, we got our friend Dennis in the chat from Virginia. And got some new stuff this week. We'll do this last shout out here, and then we'll come back around in the next hour for the rest of what we have in so far. Again, dxchallenges.com/shout. You got plenty of time to get those in. For Dennis this week, 1600 WKWK in Key West, Florida. We're looking and down to the south. You're going to see a very common theme here. 1280 WCMN Arecibo, Puerto Rico. 810 HJCY in Bogota, Colombia. 1040 WHBO in Pinellas Park, Florida. 1090 HIJM in Santiago, Dominican Republic. Very nice. Here's one. This is another one. I didn't hear Venezuela this week, but he did. 830 YVLT San Antonio de los Altos, Venezuela. And in the midst of all this Aurora action, he still was able to get a Trans-Atlantic. How awesome is this? 1314 Radio Moldova in Moldova matched the fast dialing sound and time pips. I know Barry heard them as well this week, and so I think they were collaborating a bit to get that matched up. So well done. That's a new country. All three of those are new countries for Dennis. Dominican Republic, Moldova, and Venezuela. So we first break out the stamping of the passport and get that going on here. We also have some Latin American stuff here for you because he was able to get some Latin American stations. And we got the new logs for you, man, including we're gonna have to get an extra big chainsaw to saw down Moldova. That's a big one. All right, so that is well done, man. Well done, Dennis. 3 new countries, several new stations. Puerto Rico, Colombia, Florida, Dominican Republic. Man, everybody's just getting in on the action this week. So well done, my friend. And this brings me to one of my themes we're going to talk about here in this first hour. We're talking about this Latin American DX was the collaboration that was going on with Barry and Dennis, and comparing notes about what he had heard, what Barry had originally heard, and then how that matched up. So we're going to talk about that here in this first hour. We'll get to more shout outs in the second hour. Again, dxchallenges.com/shoutout. Get those in, and we'll get you some praise on the air as well. So this week, 3 CMEs, 2 G4 storms, one that bordered on G5. It just wasn't at G5 conditions long enough for them to actually qualify it as a G5. But amazing week. We saw Bravo Zulu BZ values like negative 37 at one time was that Tuesday night. It was like, whew. And it actually started before those CMEs even hit. Because the big CME was Wednesday, but we didn't actually have a whole lot going on Wednesday because it kind of, I think it arrived earlier in the day. It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, my time, around, 1900 Zulu, somewhere in there is when it arrived. So definitely earlier in the day. Which kind of meant that by the time we got into darkness here in the States, that some of that impact was kind of lessening a little bit. We also, I think they said that there was a bit of a tilt to this one, so it kind of glazed us a little bit, kind of a glancing hit, so it wasn't as prominent. I know we didn't see any aurora here on Wednesday. And then on Tuesday, that was the big day, but there was also very significant DX on Monday. Monday, I guess that was the 10th. There was very significant DX. Tim Trump up in Michigan was getting some phenomenal catches. We were here. I heard Radio Vision and Tumbes on 1090 in Peru louder than I've ever heard them, maybe ever. Definitely the loudest I've heard them since the first time I heard them when I was in Charleston. So that was like, whoa, this is a big signal. But there was a lot of Colombians being heard that night, Ecuadorians, like deep into South America. From up north, deep into South America, for a lot of folks. A lot of us watching Uruguay and Chile. We saw some carriers there, like the Uruguayan last night was getting pretty nice. The carrier on the waterfall was getting a nice deeper yellow and orange. It was getting close to red, and then it would go back down. I was like, come on. I've been chasing that station for 2 years. So The main DX event, I'll say, really started on Tuesday. Although, again, there was some stuff happening on Monday, kind of pre-storm. But the main DX event kind of happened on Tuesday. That's when we got those first 2 CMEs that kind of hit kind of back to back. And we saw, when we went live, we saw quite a bit of DX. Some of the stations that we were able to hear here, 1570 Radio Via out of Guatemala. They were in all week. And they're, would I say they're common here in New Orleans in the Southeast Louisiana? Not common. Like I'll hear them probably a couple times a month. That's probably what I would say is a couple times a month. Radio Villa will show up out of Guatemala, but they're definitely not like a nightly visitor. Ecuador is more of a nightly visitor on 1510 than they are, but 1570 Radio Villa in Guatemala. They were a big one that was in a lot this week. 1560 Radio Adventista out of Panama. You heard Pete mention he heard them this week. They were in this week a couple times, especially on Tuesday. Had them about 2 or 3 times, really kind of coming up a little bit, and they were easy. Both of them, Villa and Adventista, were pretty easy to match up to the live stream. So in these situations, the live stream, when you're doing live DX, it can be a little harder, obviously, when you're doing your recording review, because you don't have that to kind of lean on unless you were recording during the time. But during the live DX, man, those live streams are a great way to match it up, or a Kiwi, like a Kiwi that's kind of nearby the thing you're trying to hear. Bonaire is a great one. That's a really good one. Ours was pretty popular this week, was doing pretty good because we had such a good beat on a lot of these stations because we're closer. We're closer than most folks are in the audience here. We're pretty close to Central America and South America, so we get a pretty good look at a lot of that when these conditions kind of come in. So 1560 Radio Adventista out of Panama was in. 1540, I'd never heard ZNS there from Bahamas. 1510 Radio Monumental in Ecuador. They're pretty much a nightly visitor here anyway, unless it's like super dead. But there were times when like they were at or on top of LAC, which is when the conditions are good. That's what you usually get from them. And there was another station or two underneath I never did pull out. Probably one of those was Mexico, but I didn't stick around because we were kind of frequency hopping quite a bit. 1500, we had Mexico there. 1090, 11. I'll move back up a little bit. 1170, we had Colombia. 1160, we did hear the Caribbean Lighthouse out of Antigua a few times this week. Not very loud, not very often. I've heard them louder here before, but when they were in, they were there, they were identifiable. And again, that's one where I actually used the Trans World Radio Bonaire Kiwi to match up to their audio because they hear that one very, very well down there. 1110 was Mexico. 1100 was Colombia for me. 1090 mentioned Tumbes. Let me play you guys a little clip here. This is how loud they were. If I can find this clip here. From Monday. I was blown away by how loud they were on Monday night. Well before, like I said, before the main storms hit on Tuesday, the main event for DX from a DX purpose. This is how loud Radio Vision in Tumbes, Peru was on Monday. In case you're wondering, it's the preacher, the Spanish guy in the prayers. A lot of you have heard him. Man, when you get his voice locked in, I start hearing it all. Even when he's not there, I hear Gloria, 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 Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Yeah, so that's how loud they were here on 1090, and the station you hear underneath them with also some preaching was AAAY out of Little Rock. So here I got you I got you, Kaz, right here. Keep it handy.
Señor. Aleluya, aleluya, aleluya.
There he is.
Esparce agua limpia sobre mí, Señor. Límpiame de todo inundicia, de todo de la...
So that is the stream for Radio Vision. That covers you for any other outlets, including 770 and 1090. 1060 here, it's Mexico, XECPAE. 1050 was Mexico. 1030 was Mexico. And when I say 1030 and 1060 are always pretty big stations here from Mexico into my neck of the woods because Mexico's right there. It's across the Gulf. I got nothing but salt water between them and I, and so it's an easy pickings. When I tell you 1030 and 1060 both were local quality, full quieting, local quality. You could almost hear like transmitter hum. That's how loud they were. It was really, really like locked in this week from those two. See what else did we get? 910. We had La FAMA down in San Andres, Providencia. We had a brief few moments where Costa Rica on 910 was coming in. There are two stations that there were three stations that I chase for, or I look for Costa Rica. One of those is 570 or 550. Sorry, 550. Radio Santa Clara. Barry's heard them quite a few times, but their audio is kind of weak, but they have a very unique offset, like 549.925 or whatever. 910 is another one. That one is, what is the name of that station? Pull up here on the key. There's a Costa Rican Kiwi that I use for my comparison here. I didn't have it labeled. I'll have to go back in my notes and figure out. But 910 is one there in Costa Rica, and the other one is 1080. Those are the three main Costa Rican stations that I chase when I look for Costa Rica. I've only heard one, and that's the 910. And they were in a couple times this week, very, very weak. Also on 910, you saw me earlier when we were doing our top of the hour. I was looking for them. Was Radio Suyapa out of Honduras, and they around. I want to say it is maybe 2300 UTC this time of the year, like now during not daylight savings. They do their church bells. They have a very unique church bell, and you can actually find it here. And I want to point you guys to this as well, because this can also help a lot of you out when you're DXing Latin American stations. This is our resources page on the challenge website. So I'm going to put this link in here as well. This is dxchallenges.com/resources. You'll see there's a couple things here. I'm accumulating a collection of anthems that we've heard from Latin America. So these are ones that we've heard and we've been able to snag. So there's quite a few here. You'll see we've got Bonaire from Netherlands Antilles here on 800. We've got a couple of different versions of the Colombian national anthem here, as heard on like 570 from Radio Nacional de Colombia. Back when they were still RSANA on 910, now they're La FAMA. The Cuban national anthem, there's a couple of cuts of that one, different versions. And then Mexico, there's quite a few here. You have national anthem, and there's different variations of that, as a lot of you know. And then there's also the state anthems. And this can trip a lot of people up, is the state anthems. You'll hear an anthem, and you're like, well, it's not the Mexican anthem. It's not Colombia. It's not Cuba. Maybe it's something, like Venezuela, Argentina, or something. And I mean, I've fallen for that so many times. So I'm trying to put up these state anthems as well to help you out. So you'll see we've got this is the Estado de Mexico. They're like the actual state of Mexico. Here's Quintana Roo. Here's Tamaulipas. So we've got a couple different ones in here as well. So this can be helpful for you if you're trying to identify based off of an anthem that you hear. A good time for that, by the way, Barry and I, we love this time. It's around 1100 UTC, around 5 a.m. Central Time is chef's kiss. Fantastic time for national anthems, because you get a lot of those kind of East Coast or Eastern Time, like Colombia and some of these others that are doing their anthems around that time, because it's like 6 o'clock for them. And even some of the other ones, they'll still play theirs around 5. Even like some of the Central Time Zone folks will play their anthem around that time. So fantastic time to look for. Central and South America is right there, 1100 UTC, and those anthems can help. I have a couple that I'm also going to be uploading here soon for like El Salvador, Honduras, some of those others. I've got a couple very weak copies, but I want to get those up just to give you something to listen to. The other thing that's here is this one, this Unique Sounds of Latin America. This is a helpful thing for you guys. If you're listening for certain stations, check this list to see if your station is on here, because sometimes some of these stations will have a unique little thing that they do, a jingle or a melody or a sound or some kind of little thing that they do that's like, oh, there they are. And here is one. This is Radio Viva Pasto on 780 out of Pasto, Colombia. You're going to hear just a little bit of and it's a very quick little hit. Very quick. And sometimes that's the only thing I've been able to hear. Like I'll tell that there's like music playing underneath or something like that, like real weak. But that's the only thing I'll actually hear is that little da-na-na-na. And it's almost like a DX test. It sticks out. Boom. I know, like, okay, I don't need to look any further. I know that's Radio Viva. There's also a full ID with their whole jingle here as well. That also cuts through pretty well. And then you'll have things like Caracol Radio here out of Colombia. W, they have a very unique little jingle they play at the top of the hour. I got to hear that this week. Right here.
Esta es W.
That little minor key keyboard riff right there, that's their jingle. It sticks out very, very well. There's some others here. I got a couple of examples from Cuba here. Radio Progreso, Radio Bayamo, with their jingles they have. Radio Artemisa, Encyclopedia, their imaging, and Radio Reloj. I was just mentioning in the chat earlier, where have they gone? Where has Radio Reloj disappeared? And there's actually several other Cubans as well that it seemed to have just disappeared. I still hear Radio Reloj on, let me see if they're on right now on 950. Let's go check it out. I mean, not really. I have Splatter here for my local on 940. That makes it a little tricky. Oh, it's not moving. I got to refresh. That's why. Okay, they're in there. Yeah, there's Reloj on 950, but again, I have not heard much from them recently. So, but if you do hear them, you want to kind of compare. If you're not familiar with Reloj, there's some stuff. Here is a little Dashing Through the Snow jingle on Haiti. We have ABC Radio out of Honduras on 550. We've got a bunch of stuff here from Mexico, including there's that one we had earlier, XEANT, their big sign off on 770. I talked about that. Here's the RCN Radio, and the thing about that is they've actually rebranded. They've split the RCN Radio outlets into these different networks. There's one law FAMA, a couple of others, but they still use the little sounder thing, this little thing right here. They still use that little wah, 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 wah. So even on law FAMA, you'll still hear that on like 770, 910, things like that. You'll still hear that. So there's Venezuela. So there's a bunch of stuff up here that you can use to help you out. But I wanted to also come down to these as well. So one of those questions I get a lot is, what are some stuff that I can try to hear? We covered a lot of that in this video series. And we also did an article for the Spectrum Monitor. I linked it directly right here. at the bottom of the page, but there's these 3 videos where I break up the top 10 countries from Latin America that you can try to hear tonight on AM radio, especially if it's a rural condition. So you're going to want to familiarize yourself with this and develop kind of your beacon list. So my first one is always, for me, 1510, 910, 810, 770, 1090, 550, 600. I'm trying to determine if there are any Latin conditions, how deep is it going? Because am I just hearing like Cuba and Mexico? That's a typical night. That means there's no enhancement at all. Am I hearing down in the Central America? Is now Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador there? That can be a little more common for me here, but it also can be indicative of a little more penetrational enhancement down towards the south. If I'm hearing a lot of Colombia and Ecuador, not just the big ones that are usual, but I'm hearing a lot of Colombia and Ecuador, now I'm getting deeper into South America. If I'm hearing Peru, we're going for it, right? I'm looking for everything if I'm hearing Peru, which was Monday night. So you'll want to familiarize yourself here. Use our top 10 countries list here. We give you some examples. Now, some of the networks and things like that have changed, but the basic premises here is still the same. Familiarize yourself with those options. Another thing that you can also do, if you're wanting to go in and actually do kind of some preliminary research, I actually was doing this this week for Brazil. If you log in at medium wave list, go up here to the download section, and you're going to see there's a bunch of countries listed, right? So I chose Brazil because I was doing some research. Say, okay, I'm going to try to go for some Brazilians who is still on, because I know there's quite a few that are leaving the air. So I chose Brazil here, and then I said I want it in PDF format, and then I start my download, and it's going to give you a couple of alerts, and that's fine. So now it's putting that together, and then it gives me this, which is a little zip file, and here is the Brazilian list, and it gives you a list of all of their stations, including some stuff that's outside of band. So there's some long wave in here, like beacons and stuff. But if we keep scrolling, you'll see here. Here's the list of all the Brazilian AM stations that are on right now. This is based on what's in medium wave list, and it gives you the frequency, it gives you the city, it gives you the station information, it gives you the power. That power is one of the ones that I'm like really focused on. I'm looking at those like 100, 200 kilowatt stations out of Brazil. That's what I'm trying to find. 50 kilowatt, things like that, to give me my best shot at hearing something from there. So this is something that I do a lot, is when I'm building a target list like I'm doing right now for Chile, Bolivia, Brazil, and Uruguay is pretty much 770. I'm trying to think, was there anybody else? There's Chile, Bolivia, and Brazil. Those are the 3 in Uruguay. Those are the 4 that I'm still needing in South America. So I'm putting together my target list. I have a dry erase board over here on the back of my door where I've written them all down, right? So when you have an event like this, you'll know instantly exactly where to go. You can gather your beacon frequencies to see what conditions are like, even if it's stuff that you've already heard. And that's what I usually do. Again, 1510, 910, 810, 770, 600, 550, 570. I'm looking at all these beacon frequencies to see, okay, how far into the Latin America am I hearing? Am I getting down into Ecuador? 700 for Radio Sucre out of Ecuador. Am I getting down into Peru? 1090. Now I'm going to add 770 back to that list as well for Peru. So am I getting these stations down further south? And then if so, that opens up for me to then put my research in for those target countries that I have. So again, if you're looking for this, you go to medium wave list. It's in the download section where you see like my AM band scan logbook. Go to the download section and you'll see all the different countries listed. You can also pull them just by region if you want to. So I can pull like all of the Americas here. This will give me all of North America, South America, Central America, everything, Caribbean, all of it. And then you can always obviously like come in here and uncheck any countries that you're not interested in. Because some of these, like, for instance, where's Belize? Yeah, there's Belize. There are no AM stations in Belize. So I can uncheck that because that's not going to do me any good, right? But you can check all those different ones off that you do want to have and then make a download PDF, and it'll give you one of these PDFs for every country. And some of them are super short. Like you look at the one for Antigua or British Virgin Islands, there's not a lot there. So, that can help you at least, though, identify what options are there that you can try to target after. So, again, medium wave list, downloads, that is where you can start your research and really get in there and kind of get your hands dirty with what's available. All right. Let us announce our next frequency range for the next frequency challenge. So for almost a year now, since it was, I guess, late December last year, we have been kind of doing these themed challenges because we had been doing the frequencies or frequency ranges, and we'd kind of gone through all the frequency ranges twice. So I wanted to give us something a little bit different to kind of spice it up, and we went with the themes for gray line, graveyard, 50 kilowatts, U.S. states, country challenge, all these different things. But I always wanted to get back to our roots. I always wanted to get back to here's what we do here with our medium wave frequency challenges. All of us, it was initially conceived because backstory is 1560, where WFME in New York is whatever. When they first went off the air, all the East Coast folks were like, oh, finally. And so everyone congregated on 1560, and everyone was DXing at the same time. And we're on social media. We're comparing notes. We're in the IRCA email reflector. We're comparing notes. Everybody's like, oh, have you heard this one yet? Oh, how about this one over here in Missouri? Blah, 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 blah. So it was an amazing time. And I logged like 10 stations on 1560 that like week or two that we were all kind of doing that. And I got the idea. I was like, this is how we should do this. So with that in mind, we're getting back to our roots, quite literally. Our very first frequency challenge we ever did back in 2021 was 910. So we're going back to where it all started almost 4 years ago. Because we're actually around 4 years ago right this month, actually. So 910 through 930. So for those of you who might have jumped into the frequency challenge a little bit later on, we were doing the themes. How this works is anything between 910 and 930, that's open for business, okay? Even if it's some of those like split frequencies, like 9 kilohertz splits in between, that's fine. What's that, like 9? There's 927, 918. 909 was right off. We just barely missed 909. So yeah, there's those frequencies in between, but also obviously the 10 kilohertz frequencies. Any station that you hear, as long as they're broadcasting on that frequency, not an image or a spur or a harmonic, if they're broadcasting on that frequency, have at it. It's fair game. If it's a TIS or a pirate, whatever, it's fair game, and you can log it and put it in for the challenge. And so only those three frequencies. We've limited down the entry form, so you can only do 910, 920, 930, and then the two European splits in between. And so we're gonna let you open this up so you can log just those three frequencies, or I guess 5. Focus on those, focus on this range, and get as much as you possibly can and squeeze out as much as you can. This is how a lot of folks filled their logbook, was doing this exercise of focusing on certain frequencies. It's how one of the ways that I filled up a lot of my logbook was by focusing on these frequencies that maybe I hadn't really spent a lot of time on. So we're going to start off on 910 for our first hour of live DX. This DX hour brought to you by International Radio Club of America, IRCAonline.org. IRCA Online, the website you want to go to for membership information, DX Monitor membership bulletin, access to the email reflector. They have free publications up there too, like the Mexican log and so much more. Sunset maps, all that kind of stuff. So go up to IRCAonline.org and get those so that you can become a member today. Jeff says October of 2022, 930 must have been one of our frequency challenges because I have a bunch of logs from that week on 930. Yeah, we did. I think we started off 910, and then not long after that we did 970, I think was the next one. But you can definitely For those of us who've been around for these challenges, you can definitely see it in your logbook. You're like, wow, why would I have all these logs in this one little period there? So let's start some DX here on 910. We're going to focus on this one for the first hour, and then for the next hour, we'll do 920 and 930. And we're also going to cover in this next hour, after we talk about antennas, we're going to talk about some target stations. We're going to look at the map, look at some of the pattern maps and things like that. We're going to see where some target stations are that you can try to shoot for, and some things you might be able to get, especially down south in Latin America. Maybe these conditions might continue to reverberate for a little while. Amen, Jacob. Oh, yes. You know what IBOC stands for, right? It's interfering bucket of crap. Right off the old noggin there. And Jerry and Jacob both mentioned things here. So another reason that we started moving away from like always just doing just the frequency ranges, there's always going to be somebody who's like, well, this frequency range is shot for me because these frequencies, I've got a local or whatever. So we're trying to keep it kind of open with our themes, but we're going to be bouncing back and forth between themes and frequency ranges as we close out the rest of this season. It bleeds over constantly. I like that too. Yes, KRLD needs to lose it. 1090 is a mess. Don't they know there's a Peruvian there we're trying to hear? All right, let's see who we have here. I'm going to put the old SAS here, the synchronous split here. Simulated stereo on the Kiwi. And see who we have on 910. We got a couple of Spanish stations, it sounds like.
66. La voz de la iglesia que Padre la Virgen.
That's exactly right, Jacob. You nailed it right on the head. Part of the challenge is we have to learn how to get around these obstacles that are there in the way of the DX. That's part of the challenge, and that's why we do some of the things that we do. So, love that mentality, man. All right, 910 kilohertz, top of the hour time frame. Let's do it.
DX Central Live, top of the hour alert.
All right, we are looking for IDs here at the top of the hour. We're sitting on 910 kilohertz, which is our first of three main frequencies for our new challenge, the week 6 of the medium wave frequency challenge. While we're doing this, I'm going to turn the microphone off. We're going to hit the challenge page and make sure we got this linked up for you to be able to do what you need to do. So, dxchallenges.com, and make sure you are registered if you have not yet done so. And look at that, the noise just shows up right on cue. That's our electrical noise from the power company. Yeah.
Y mientras eso pasa, los invito también para que sigan pegados a la programación de la FM. Y ahora.
Suyapa Med. Manipulaciones. Analgésico inmediato.
La directora de la Fundación que crea su mismo nombre, la Fundación y que precisamente ha sido creada para gente joven que ha atravesado actividades tan tempranas. Pero tenemos cuando hablamos de este tema y ahora ¿cómo estás? Buenas noches para todos, para los adolescentes el curso de actividad Bueno, inicialmente fueron dos razones. La primera es que
I was trying to see if we might have had any bit of Radio Suyapa out of Honduras in here. I didn't hear. They were the one that had that little alarm clock that showed up randomly there. That would be nice to hear. We did hear a lot of FAMA IDs in there quite a bit. Again, for those who are doing the challenge, or if you're just needing this station, 910 La FAMA, if you hear them, that actually does not count as Colombia. It counts as a completely separate country, the country of San Andres y Providencia. It's on the DXCC list for ARRL. It's on the IRCA country list, which I think I have somewhere here. I'll try to link it. That way you guys have access to it. I think it hadn't been updated in quite a while, but it's still there, and it's still what we go by. It's what I go by. It's the most recent version. So yeah, it counts as its own country. So definitely something that if you're looking for another country to add to your logbook, that is something that you can definitely do. You can try for those guys. Here's that country list, the IRCA country list, compiled by our friend Bruce Portzer, the president of the IRCA. Speaking of, before we go to our next break here, speaking of Bruce, we actually have an interview that we did 3 years ago with Bruce. That was going to be the season premiere of DX Central Live Season 3. So we did one in 2022 or 2021. It was Season 2 premiere with Wayne Heinen from the NRC. We did an interview with him. We played a couple segments of that here on the show. And then for Season 3, I was going to have this interview with Bruce Portzer, president of the IRCA. And then got everything in, got the interview done. It was a great interview. And then afterwards, the files somehow got corrupted or something. It didn't work anymore, and I couldn't do the video at the time. It was video or nothing. So I just kind of shelved it on the chance that eventually one day I would do a podcast. And now we're doing a podcast. So guess what? Later this week, probably, or this coming week, probably Wednesday or Thursday-ish, we're going to be publishing that interview with Bruce Portzer 3 years later. So you'll finally get to hear Bruce, his reflection on 60 plus years of DXing and what it's like to DX from the Pacific Northwest down to down under, down in Australia, New Zealand. He's taken a lot of DX expeditions. He's tried a lot of antennas. He's also a fan of the DCAS antenna. So you'll be very, very well worth your time to listen to that podcast once we put it out. Now, our patrons, you guys already have access to it. You already have the ability to go listen to that now. So if you want early access to podcast episodes like that or videos that we have that we're coming out with, I'm editing one right now on Jaguar, actually. I hope to have it up for our patrons this weekend and then for everybody else later in next week. If you want that early access to this stuff and some other nice little perks, go to patreon.com/DXCentral and check out our different options. And if you so are motivated to do so, to become a member, we'd love to have you there. And any contribution that you make to the channel through Patreon comes right back into it. We're already taking the donations that have been made already. We're pouring it right back into the channel already with new subscriptions and new resources that we can use to do more stuff. So I'm very, very excited about that. And so, yeah, we'll have that. The Patreon folks right now, our patrons already have access to that podcast. Everyone else will get that probably, like I said, about Thursday next week, Wednesday, Thursday-ish. And then the new video on Jaguar software. We touched on it last week in the live stream, but we do a little bit deeper dive into our video. I'm editing that right now. That should be up for our patrons this weekend. And then next week, probably Wednesday, Thursday-ish, that video will be up on our YouTube channel for everyone else. All right. And that'll be part 1 of that series, by the way. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about AMDX antennas. We're going to talk about the CAS antenna. We got the man sitting right now in the chat. You guys can ask him questions about it, right? Because he is CAS, and the antenna is named after him, and it's a tremendous antenna. And man, it has opened up my DX like no other antenna ever had. But there are other antennas we can also talk about. Things like magnetic loops and super loops and bogs and beverages and verticals. So we're going to talk about some of the different options out there and why you may want to look at one over another. So don't go anywhere, my friend. More DX Central Live is heading your way right after this.
DX Central, because we're all about radio. Visit us at dxcentralonline.com or check us out on YouTube. Search DX Central.
Just the radio and me. Now screens on the walls, lost in endless ecstasy. Tuning waves with these frequencies so clear. Now apps and feeds they tease, overwhelming me with fear. Lost in frequency. Too much tech I see. Dial back the clock, please. Simpler times for me.
From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
It's DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana, where we bring you live DX challenges, conversation, tips, tricks, all kinds of good stuff. And this hour, we're going to be talking about AMDX antennas. And this is kind of a follow-up to the conversation we had a couple weeks ago about SDRs, because I kept seeing a lot in social media posts, and this is always there. I mean, it's one of the most common questions that people ask me on social media and various places. What's the best SDR for AMDX? What's the best antenna for AMDX? And there's no single answer. That's one thing that I can definitely tell you. There's no single answer out there for this question. What's the best SDR or antenna or radio or whatever for AMDX? because it depends on a lot of different factors, right? We talked about that in the SDR discussion, but what we're going to try to do today is talk about some different antenna options and let you kind of know what you can expect budget-wise, what you can expect if there's anything you have to build yourself, and how complicated that might be, how much space are you going to need for these things, and what kind of performance to expect. We're going to talk about some of these different options when we get into this here in just a bit. But first, I do want to spend another few moments here giving out some more shout-outs.
Shout out loud, hear the call for every single big or small, from AM to FM to C to C. We celebrate the ones who snag the IT. Shout out loud, let it be known, you're never DXing all alone. Through the static we found our way, shout outs making waves today.
I got a little carried away there, sorry. All right, picking back up here with our next round of shout-outs from our DXers, and another great week, and a fantastic week for DX for a lot of folks. The Latin American conditions we talked about really helping out with that, but let's see what else has been heard this week by our DX friends. We're going to start with Jacob Hammond up in Minnesota. Airplane Engine up in the chat right now. 2 new logs from Peru this past week, which is a new country for him. 770 OCX1T. That's Radio Vision in Chiclayo, Peru. That's what it was. That Chiclayo Radio Vision is on 770, not 1100. I got those. 1090 OCU1Z Radio Vision, Tumbes, Peru. Both matched to the Radio Vision stream, which I posted a link for that earlier. Thanks to the auroral conditions and Tim Trump on Slack for the tips. I also got a few new Colombian logs with 610 HJKL in Bogota, 930 HJCS in Bogota, 1070 HJCG in Bogota, 1160 HJOC in Bogota. All matched to the new Colombian Web 888 SDR, a new one also from Ecuador, 580 Union Radio, and an offset of 580.059. A few other new logs includes 750 KSEO in Durant, Oklahoma, who was on air after dark there. They do that from time to time. 560 KLVI in Beaumont, 810 WSJC in Maggie, I don't know how to pronounce this one. Maggie, Mississippi, we'll call it that. 960 KROF in Abbeville, Louisiana. 1220 KTLV in Midwest City, Oklahoma, 1230 WHOP in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and 1450 KGFF in Shawnee, Oklahoma. So we got quite a few things to give our friend Jacob up here. First, we have a passport stamp to do. Go, stamping that sucker. So we got the new country in Peru. We also got several new Latin American stations. I think you heard everything in Bogota. So you can scratch Bogota off the list, I think, now. And some new log sawing going on for him here for several new logs. I didn't forget you. You got that gumbo, baby. Some gumbo, maybe a little jambalaya, a little etouffee, and some boudin balls, man. Boudin. Time of the year. Tailgating, boudin, some gumbo. As the weather gets a little colder, this is what you want. Won't be too much longer. We'll be talking about king cake, baby. Well done, Jacob. Impressive haul from up in Minnesota, and impressive work with. He uses a pair of what's called Well Good amps. They're kind of a takeoff, a version, if you will, of the venerated Wellbrook magnetic loops. He has a pair of these things that work really, really well for him. So while we're talking about antennas, I know those are some of the ones that he uses. He does great with those things. He hears stuff all over the country up there in Minnesota. So well done, man. Greg Caniglio in New York from his 6:30 a.m. recording on yesterday morning, 690 XEMA in Zacatecas, Mexico with La Mejor and 107.9, dominating the channel. I like doing that whenever I can. I actually know how to pronounce it sometimes. I had never even heard of this as a target. Yeah, Yeah, that's a good one, man. That's not one of those commonly heard stations from Mexico. XEX, XEQ, XEW, XEWA, things like that, XERF. Those are more commonly heard, but that one, that's not often heard. It was mixing with a country station that I can't figure out. Still have to review the rest of the recording, which also featured WBAP and new log of KRLD. Thanks to Neil Wolfish for that tip. So we've gotten a new Latin American station in here for you, man. You're going to hear that song a lot tonight. And we've also got and that log of Zacatecas is a new Mexican state for our friend Greg. Our champion from the Summer of DX Challenge. Well done, Greg. And he's got a little clip for us here that we're going to play for you as well. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like my dial, man. That's yeah. Very, very familiar sound here, man. Love hearing those stations from Mexico. I'm trying to get my totals up on Mexican stations. We're getting there. Getting almost to the point where we're down like I think 4 or 5 states left we've got left in Mexico. So I knew it would be good from here. I didn't know it would be this good. Well done, Greg. Tim Trump, you're up next. Cat 7 in the chat right now with 2 new Ecuadorians and 1 new Peruvian added to the logbook this week, thanks to the auroral conditions. And we're talking about antennas. This guy uses decals. Now, I can't remember, Tim, if you're still using the the parallel decals. He had, at one time, at least I know, he had 2, and they were just like laser beams. But now I know he at least uses 1 decals, which is a double version of the CAS antenna. We'll talk about that here in a bit. And man, he is the DX magnet. This guy hears it all, from Australia, New Zealand to Puerto Rico to Peru to Ecuador to all over the place. Greenland, he hears it all. 830 Radio Huancavica and 1030 Radio Equintina for Ecuador. Number 6 and 7 logged from Michigan. Both were heard clearly at a distance of 3,158 miles. 770 Radio Vision in Chiclayo, Peru, also logged for his second Peruvian at a distance of 3,472 miles. Clips attached of the 2 Ecuadorians. So let's see what our friend Tim Trump had from this week from Ecuador. We're going to hit this one. Let me do this. Yeah. There we go. Here's one of them. There we go. That's one. That was 830 Huancavica. And now let's take a look over here. Rid of that here so we can do the second one. This is Equintina. I think it's how you pronounce it. We'll see if they say it here. go. That's the second one there from Ecuador for our friend Tim Tromp up in Michigan. The DX Magnet, we like to call him here because he does. He hears all signals. He gets them all. So well done, my friend. Let's see what we owe you here. We owe you 2 new Ecuadorians to that one. So we got you this. And of course, the log saw. Well done, my friend. And what he hears up there is one of those things that just makes you just, oh, I want all that. It's like when I was growing up, when I was younger, I'd read all the stuff that Mark Connolly was getting up there in Massachusetts, and Bruce Conti up in New Hampshire, and all those guys, and just the big Newfoundland D expeditions and everything. And I'd read all that, and they're talking about their phasing units and this antenna and that antenna, and I was like, I want to do that. You just sit there and see this, like, okay, this is part 1 of our Latin American list, and this is like 3 pages just from 530 to 600, and then we're going to do part 2 next week. So it's like half the season is just reporting on all the stuff they heard. It was amazing. So next up, we got our friend Sean Kutsko. Sean, again, is at a gig tonight, and so he was not able to join us in the live stream, but did send a phenomenal week that he had this week. Let's talk about this. He said, I wish I could hang with y'all and talk up the amazing conditions. The past 2 weeks have been so good, I don't even know where to begin. I'll try to abbreviate this as much as I can. The Graveyard Challenge was my perfect cup of tea. I do most of my DXing early in the morning at the Gray Line, so I was ready to rake it in. However, work and band commitments, along with a vacation to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, thwarted my efforts out of the gate, and I realized I'd never be able to catch up with Greg Caniglio and Neil Wolfish and their amazing station totals, so I opted to shoot for states instead. Ended up with 35 states in the challenge. I think he meant the Gray Line challenge there. So yeah, the challenge netted me 10 new domestic logs, including a big surprise of 5 kilowatt KLAD 960 in Klamath Falls, Oregon at 1,729 miles. Only my second log from Oregon. I want that. What I didn't expect to do was to lead the challenge in country totals as well. With the massive solar storms this week, I was able to log, get this, guys, 5 new countries, with multiple of them logged during the challenge window. 5 new countries for our friend Sean Kutsko this week. They were 650 HIAT Radio Universal in Dominican Republic at 1,851 miles. OCU-1Z 1090 Radio Vision in Tumbes, Peru, 3,058 miles. Oh, man. HRVA 910 La Voz de Suyapa in Tegucigalpa, Honduras at 1,800 miles. Yeah. HIMY 910 La FAMA San Andres Island. Not Colombia, that is San Andres y Providencia, 1,946 miles. Caribbean Lighthouse Radio 1160 St. Mary, Antigua, 2,239 miles. Peru, Honduras, and San Andres were all logged within 21 minutes of each other around 4:15 Zulu on November the 11th. That was that Tuesday night we did our live stream. He was just like knocking them out, man. In addition, I also logged OCX1T Radio Vision 770 in Chiclayo, Peru at 0136 on the 13th at 3,283 miles, my furthest AM reception with any audio to date. Thanks to Old Soul for having a bit of a bellyache and sending some of that our way. You got it, man. He also dipped down to VLF part of the band, did some NDB DXing. I wish I would have thought of this. On the morning of the 14th of November, at 1246 Zulu, logged PN on 515 kilohertz in Ponca City, Oklahoma for my 100th NDB log. Still have a ton of recordings from the auroral conditions to parse, but I've run out of time to do so before the challenge ends. Congrats to everyone who logged some amazing stuff the past couple weeks. It was, in the words of jazz organ master brother Jack McDuff, a real good one. Yes, it was. Yes, it was, man. So we got all kinds of stuff to dull out here for our friend Sean Kutsko. You guys give him love in the chat. We're going to start with the stamping of some passports. I wish there was a way to do this like 5 times. countries in 1 week. 3 of them in, like I said, 21 minutes. He also got some new logs, obviously, so we're going to do that as well for the MDBs and some of the others. Obviously, we got some Latin American stuff to give him here as well. Hopefully I said that city right, Carl. Ponca City? Like I'm calling Ponk City. What else? Oh, he got a milestone because he got the distance record. He broke his distance record. 3,283 miles. Furthest AM reception with audio. Fantastic, man. Absolutely fantastic. Well done, brother. And congratulations. I know he had himself a week, and it was so much fun. And this is one of the things I wanted to make sure we mention is the Slack channel. So just all of the energy and all of the companionship and the help and the assistance that was there in the Slack channel this week of folks comparing notes and like, here's what I heard at 1200 UTC or whatever. You know, here's what I heard at 0100 UTC. Here's their link for their live stream. Here's a link to this Kiwi over here. Like all of that back and forth energy, all that assistance and that help. That's what it's about. It was especially with events like this. We have a finite amount of time that we're working with, how long these openings last. So we have to make sure we maximize those, like an e-skip opening, right? So the more you can get out of that opening, the better you're going to be. And just all of the people saying, check over here and check this out. Check over here and check this out. I loved it. I loved it. Loved being part of it. Loved seeing it. Loved all the results that we got out of it. So outstanding effort this week, guys. This is what we trained for. So another person that was having some fun with that this week was our friend Stuart, W8SRC in the chat. Said it maybe not have received nearly as much impressive DX as others have this past week. Don't slouch yourself, man. You had a good week too. Congratulations to those who are racking up several new countries on AM and Aurora triggered e-skip on FM. We're going to talk about that here as well in a bit. New gray line challenges this week. 780 the Eagle to be PTN in Cookeville, Tennessee. 850 to be XJC in Birmingham, Alabama. He's up in Michigan, by the way, for reference. He's in Michigan. News Radio 1110 KFAB in Omaha, Nebraska. New state for him. Nice. 1170 News on 6 Now. KOTV, Tulsa, Oklahoma. 770 miles. New state as well. Nice. Easy 1350 WCHI in Ohio. 1180 WKCE in Knoxville. 1080 KRLD in Dallas. Good to see a lot of folks here in that one that don't normally get to. I'd like to get rid of them. 880 AM to be RFD in Columbus, Ohio. One man's trash is another's treasure. Railroads Radio 1090 to be KFI in Wilmington, Ohio. Bigfoot Country 1350 WZGM in Black Mountain, North Carolina. 1580 to be LIJ in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Ambiente WGSF 1030 in Memphis, Tennessee. 810 WWOS in Walterboro, South Carolina. News Talk 1250 WGBF in Evansville, Indiana. 960 WFIR in Roanoke, Virginia. VSAM 1040 WPBS in Conyers, Georgia. And News Talk 1380 WAOK in Atlanta. New Skywave logs for the week. ZNS Bahamas, Freeport. That's 1,126 miles for him, a new area he hadn't heard before. La Mejor 1130 WLBA in Gainesville, Georgia. WHEW in Franklin, Tennessee. La Bonita. La Raza, Delaware, Ohio. 29 watts and 142 miles for 1550 WQCD. Los 40 540 XEWA in San Luis Potosi City. That is a New Mexican state for him. 1,712 miles. Exa FM 1070 XEIT Ciudad del Carmen in Campeche, Mexico. 1,703 miles. Nice. 1010 XL WJXL in Jacksonville Beach. Another station I'd like to get rid of. CMBR, that is Radio Encyclopedia 530 in La Habana, Cuba. Divine Mercy Radio 540 ETC, Wendell, North Carolina. Radio Catolica 720 in Managua, Nicaragua. 2,091 miles is a new country for him. I loved it when you got those. When you got that one, man. Let's see the next one here. 1660 K Radio WWRU in Jersey City, New Jersey. 1270 WLIK in Newport, Tennessee. Mixing with his local, but got them through there. Radio Bahamas 1540 ZNS1 in Nassau, and Radio Musica Nacional on 590 in La Julia, Cuba. Locura Rock FM, 830 XEIT in Mexico City, 1,819 miles. Said thanks. Yeah, man, I got you, brother. He was matching it up with our Kiwi that we have because, again, they were just like, I could have reached out and grabbed the signal. It was that close. News Talk 930 KWOC in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. That is 42 watts at 521 miles. 570 HJND, Bogota, Colombia, with a new distance record at 2,670 miles. New country. Thank you, Greg, for your help with that one. Yeah, man, look at that. Additionally, decided for the first time in 11 years to go over to the W8UM club station, work some 10-meter repeaters via F2 skip. Heard two new ones the past Monday afternoon. K9RB 29.66 in Spring Creek, Nevada. That's a 1,700-mile catch. N6 NMZ 29.62 in Auburn, California, 1,900-mile catch. Nice. I love F2 skip on 10 meters. Since I'm not really as knowledgeable as on F2 skip as some others might be, I don't have perspective on these catches, but I thought I might mention here that my furthest F2 repeater catch from 2014 happens to be PY3XC 29.67 in Brazil, 5,000 miles. Also received some new gear this past week, the RSP Duo SDR. I've been searching for an SDR with a wider bandwidth to record IQ files during eSkip openings. Can't wait to try it out with SDR Connect. I also have an AirSpy R2 on the way, which I plan to use with GQ. Ooh, he's got some clips in here for us, too. We're going to try to get to those here in seconds. But first, we've got to do some passport stamping for our friend Stuart. And we got some Latin American stuff for our friend Stuart. And we got a new U.S. state for our friend Stuart. We got a new Mexican state for our friend Stuart. And a new bit of gear for our friend Stuart. And let's play our clip here for Radio Nacional de Colombia, 570 HJND. Yeah, man, that's let me tell you what. That you talking about challenges? That's some noise to get through, right, man? That is a challenge, man. So the fact that you're able to pull that out, I heard him in there for sure. The fact that you're able to pull that out of the noise, man, that is impressive stuff. So congratulations, my friend. Well done for you. Well done for everyone this week. This is what it was all about, was weeks like this. So let's talk about antennas, AM and DX antennas. And let's talk a bit about some different options that are out there. I know we're about 20 minutes or so from top of the hour, but we'll get through this here because I want to make sure we talk about this. We have to spill over the next hour. We can do that. When I was growing up, this was what I kind of was like, this and a long wire. Okay. So this is a Turk Advantage. It's a little loop that you can passively couple to like a portable radio. and you tune it to the frequency that you're on, and you can turn it, you can do this, you can do that, and you can use this to kind of basically boost the little ferrite antenna that's inside this thing, inside your portable antenna. So when I was growing up, it was one of these. I had a select antenna, actually. Actually, it's still up here in the cabinet. Select antenna and like a GE Super radio. And then if I really wanted to get fancy, I had long wires. I remember the biggest antenna I ever did, and I was so proud of this, is I put up a 350-foot long wire pointing northeast, basically. And I put up another one that was facing like southeast. And it was like a 200-footer or whatever. And I made this little antenna switch. So I had one wire that was going out of the back of the switch to the radio, and then I had banana plugs, so I would unplug whichever one I needed to go to, right? So this was the part that went to the radio. So I'd unplug it from the northeast antenna to the southwest or whatever it was. I'd swap them out, this little built-in little plug that I made, and it worked great. And like the day I put the northeast antenna up, I heard Delaware. 350-foot long wire, immediately heard Delaware. I've been trying for them for years and years. Finally got them. It was like victory day. So we've definitely had to evolve a bit over the years in the antennas that we use. And some of these antennas had always been there, but I think we've seen a proliferation of different kinds of antennas because of what we just heard in that last clip, noise. So this Turk Advantage or an AN200 or a Select 10 or whatever, if I'm inside, this is probably not going to cut it in most cases because of the noise that's inside the house, right? The call is coming from inside the building. Well, static is coming from inside the building, right? So the noise is there. You got to get out of it. So a lot of times for the best DX type conditions to be able to help you out, you got to get away from the noise. We're talking outdoor antennas now. You can do it. You can put things like mag loops and things like that inside, but most often we're talking about getting outside, even on a balcony. Will a lot of times do you better than putting something inside. If you have no other choice, I have DX with magnetic loops sitting in a hotel room many times and gotten a lot of DX that way. But if you have the capability, even if it's putting it outside on a balcony or maybe up in your attic away from noise, if you can, sometimes there's noise stuff in the attic, but anytime that you can get the furthest away you can get from noise, the better you're going to be. So some of the different antenna options that we have at our disposal today, we have seen the proliferation and an explosion of use of magnetic loops in the last 7 to 10 years. The Wellbrook was kind of the first one that I really saw kind of breaking in for a lot of folks on AMDX, like the 1530. These are magnetic loops, so it's just a loop antenna. It's just a big old circle, and with being magnetic loops, it is there to kind of be noise agnostic. It doesn't really get impacted by noise as much. It still can get impacted by noise. You'll still get some noise, but it's less prone to noise than other antennas might be. And so now the Wellbrooks are no longer around. The one that I have a couple here, and I have a version that I take for my portable DX is the W6 LVP loop. And this thing works really, really well. I'll tell you how well it works. In 1 week, when I first moved here to Mandeville, I logged 300 radio stations using this antenna. Right? 300 stations in 1 week using this antenna. Taking its time to pull up the site here. There are a couple of different versions. There's the larger version and there's a smaller portable version. And that's one of the ones that I take with me on my trips. And it works fantastic. I took it to Outer Banks. I've taken it to California. I've taken it to DC, all over the place. It's done really, really well. So this, it pulls up, this W6 LVP loop is a fantastic option for you. There is another one that you can use, and a lot of you are using the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery. So with that, you actually have another option that you can look at too. This one's about $35, and it is called a U-loop, and it's basically a little Mobius magnetic loop, and you've got a little element of wire here. You got a little element of wire here. You have a ballon right here that brings you down for your feed line, and then you've got this little dude right here at the top that basically twists so that you have like your center pin of your coax over here, and you got the shield over here. And instead of connecting the center pin and the shield to the center pin and the shield to the other side, twist them. Now your center pin's connected to your outer shield, and then vice versa on the other side. And it really does quiet this thing down quite a bit. I mean, I took this one to DC and I heard like 200 radio stations in the span of one night in Washington, DC with this antenna. So it works really, really well. So if you're using an AirSpy HF Plus Discovery, this is one that you can use. Why do I mention it needs to have an AirSpy? It works best with a high dynamic range SDR. So it's not going to see the same results if you're plugging this into like a desktop receiver or an RTL SDR dongle or a Perseus even. This really needs something like it's built to kind of take advantage of that high dynamic range. It's a passive antenna, so it's not amplified. And so you're going to want to use it with like an AirSpy HF Plus Discovery. But this is one of those antennas that you can use to try to get yourself away from the noise. Even if you're indoors, this does a really good job against the noise. I've used it personally, like I said, in hotel rooms, and it does the trick. So definitely one, if you're using an AirSpy HF Plus Discovery, that I recommend. I don't know why Larry Plummer's site's not pulling up here, but the W6LVP loop is another one. So if you want to write that one down, you want to, it's about a couple $100, but it's really, really worth it. It's a robust outdoor unit. It comes with a little amplifier. It does have an amplifier on it, 12 dB of gain or so. This is the W6 LVP loop. It's great for HF. It's great for AM. It's also pretty good for FM too, if you don't mind me saying. It's not a Yagi. It's not a Yagi or a log periodic or something. But if you want an antenna that's going to basically get you everything you need in one antenna, I mean, you can't beat that, right? It's not going to hurt to have it, and it does do pretty decent, especially when their E-skip is open. My dad used to say it all the time. When the band is open, the band is open. And during an E-skip opening, I don't care if you have a boom box with a telescopic whip, rabbit ears, or a big Yagi. If the band is open, you're going to get something, right? So definitely something to consider there. So you can do one of these magnetic loops. I know Jacob also has the well goods that he likes as well, that he's done really, really well with. So these magnetic loops are good if you are tight on space, if you're tight on like HOA restrictions, if you're like in an apartment or a condo and you need something that you can put indoors or on a balcony and bring it down. And our friend Stephanie out in California, she's got a couple of these loops, these magnetic loops out there that she uses to great effect. And sometimes she'll bring them down, right? Because like the winds on the desert and things like that. So she'll have to bring them down. So put them like on a tripod stand. You can bring it right back down again. The cool thing about these is you don't have to get them super high. I think the instinct is always, I got to get my antenna really, really high. With these, you don't. I've had it on a little 3-foot PVC piece, stick it on the ground, like at 3 foot off the ground, and it works just as good. Okay. So definitely, and that's for that W6 LVP loop. So these magnetic loops, if you're space conscious, if you're looking for the best bang for your buck, if you're restricted because of where you are, maybe, like I said, an apartment or a condo or an HOA type situation, these are really, really good antennas for that kind of stuff. And you will hear some good DX. I've heard multiple Alberta stations on my W6 LVP loop when I first moved in. Bunch of stuff down in Latin America. So it does a really, really good job. You're going to hear a lot of good DX on these magnetic loops. Okay. Now let's talk about some of the other options that are out there for, what I would consider a little more hardcore, DXers, from a standpoint of like, they're chasing after like exotic DX. Okay. And not to say that, a magnetic loop user is not as hardcore. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that people who use some of these next antennas I'm going to talk about are driven to get like exotic stuff, and they have the space to put these kinds of antennas up. Okay. The first one we'll talk about is the CAS antenna, because this is the one that was the deal breaker for me. All my life, I had been using, I'd use the magnetic loop and I was getting great results. I was using like ham radio antennas, like my dipoles and things like that. I was getting decent results. But then I saw this CAS antenna, and what it basically is, let me see if I can get the website up here. Oh, there it was. Okay. We're going to go to Okay. This is a sort of representation of a CAS antenna. Not exact. It's not the exact CAS because it's a little taller, but this is generally speaking kind of like what we're talking about here. We're talking about a delta-shaped antenna where you have on one side a termination resistor, and on the other side you have your transformer. Okay. Now, typically, in most cases, the CAS antenna is going to be a little bit of a squash delta, where you have, let's say, for every and in CAS in the chat, if I say anything out of line here, by all means, correct me. Generally speaking, you'll have a foot of height for every 4 feet of length. So you'll see this 1-to-4 ratio pop up a lot of times. So you'll see here, like I've got 30 feet. You would typically see like 120 feet length at the bottom. You've got this one wire, I call it the sky wire, that goes up from one side of the antenna, goes up to an apex, and then comes back down. And then you've got a second wire that goes horizontally along the ground, about a foot or 2 or 3 off the ground, and it connects between the two sides. That is a delta loop, terminated delta loop, or CAS antenna. And typically with these, your transformer is going to be where your transformer is. That's your incoming signal side, as you see on the diagram. So your signals are coming in from the direction where your transformer is. The back side where you have your termination resistor, that's the null. And you're trying to get the most null you can on that back side to get rid of everything on that direction and bring in the DX that's coming from the front side. Okay. So in my case, like for instance, we've been doing a lot of DX on our big CAS that we have on the shortwave central Kiwi. It is actually elevated 10 feet off the ground, which I find gets it away from the noise quite a bit. Not a lot, all the noise, but like the household noise. I feel like it's done a pretty good job of getting rid of like household noise. It's 25 feet up in the air. So the apex is at 25 feet from that 10 foot of elevation. It's actually 35 feet in the air, but it's 25 feet from where the elevation is on the bottom wire. And then the length of it is 72 feet from end to end. So, and Kaz just mentioned it in the chat, the 1-to-4 ratio isn't super critical. A lot of times you'll see DXers with 20 to 22 foot apexes and like 70 foot lengths, 70, 72 foot, 75 foot length. So it's not like a deal breaker if you don't have that 1-to-4 ratio, but generally speaking, that's a good rule of thumb that a lot of folks will follow. My very first CAS was a 12 by 48. I had a 12 foot painter's pole and 48 feet in between the two ends. And I got Peru, I got Ecuador. This was in Charleston. I got Peru, I got Ecuador, I got up into the Northeast that I'd never heard before. Like that was like the proof of concept for me was that 12 by 48 antenna. It was amazing. Since then, I've moved up to the 22 by 70 foots in a lot of these cases, but it's a really, really good antenna. So if you're looking for something super, super directional and you're looking for something that can get you deeper into some DX that you might not have been able to get into because of like those magnetic loops, it's a bidirectional antenna. So if I'm pointing down to the south, I'm also pointing to the north. So I'm also getting signals up to the north. So you can do things like phasing and things like that to try to kind of get rid of some of the other stuff that you don't want. But if you're just wanting like a single antenna that's going to help you do that, it's highly directional. The CAS antennas, these terminated delta loops, are fantastic at doing so. And we used to, when I first started using these, I used the Wellbrook FLG 100LN transformers. This is actually an amplified transformer. It's amplified with 23 dB of gain, and it has the 16-to-1 matching transformer that you need inside, and it has a BNC connection on here, and then you plug your wires into these two here. You have a sky wire and your ground wire. These are no longer available because Wellbrook's no longer around because unfortunately they passed away. But you can actually wind your own 16-to-1 transformer. Now, going to be unamplified unless you build an amplifier, which is a whole level of complication that I'm not personally have delved into yet. But you can wind your own. We talked about that last season. We'll do another talk about it here in an upcoming episode about winding your own transformers because it's actually pretty easy to do. And they work really, really well. If you wind it right and you get a good amount of windings on there, it can, especially in an area like I am, I don't need an amplification because I got so many big stations here. I was always throwing like 20 dB of attenuation on the amplified CASs that I had. So it's a 23 dB amplifier. I was getting 3 dB of amplification at most. So these unamplified CASs actually do very, very well. You can also, if you have the room for it, you can double this, and that's called a DCAS. And the DCAS, you can actually go like let's say you have two apexes, you have a 22 foot and 22 foot, and let's say you're doing 70 foot long cases. Well, now you're talking about 140 foot for a DCAS, right? And they are even more, there's even more gain here on this antenna, and it's even more of a narrow beam width. So that's when you're really kind of getting closer to that laser beam where a CAS it's definitely tighter than like a magnetic loop. You're talking about one direction, but there's still some stuff off to the side that you're going to get. DCAS kind of tightens that down a little bit. And I know Kaz mentioned in here as well, you can actually take two of these spaced about 20 foot apart. And you can, you run them parallel, you can actually space them apart a bit, and you can run them and really get like a laser beam of directivity off the front end of that. Another thing that's really cool about these antennas, the CASs and the DCASs, are that you can actually swap. So I can take that termination resistor on the back side and I can unplug it, and I can take the transformer off the front side and I can unplug it, and I can flip it around to bring my coax with me, my feed line. And now, let's say I have a northwest-southeast CAS, and I was facing southeast and I was terminating to the northwest. If I swap the sides, now I'm getting rid of the stuff to the southeast and I'm getting stuff to my northwest. So that is a fantastic option for those folks who want to try to do multiple different directions with one antenna. You can do that. Okay? You can use these boxes. You can swap these boxes to get really, really good results. There's another version of these kind of terminated loop antennas that I also recommend. There's quite a few up here at Bruce Conti's website. I'm just going to link his entire website here because you need to be on it anyway. This is a great place to do research on antennas in general. But there's another one here that I'll talk to you about, and that is the super loop. This is the same kind of basic concept. It's just a different way, a different design. You have the termination side on one side, you have the transformer on the other, you have a wire that stretches horizontally along the ground in between the 2 points, and you have a sky wire. In this case, the sky wire goes up vertically, goes across the horizontal distance, and then comes down vertically. The vertical part is the critical part here. The higher that vertical part is, the more gain you're going to get. The bigger, you're more sensitive that antenna is going to be. The farther apart they're spaced, it also will help with like your direction, your ability to null out the backside and your beam width and things like that. And he actually includes some charts in here that kind of shows you that horizontal and vertical combination here, and which one gets you the best backside null. So you can kind of determine for yourself which ones kind of work out for you. It turns out that the 50 foot by 15 by 50 is really, really good. That's what we have in the front yard for our east-west super loop. And also this one is the 20 by 80, also works really, really well. I've used that one in the past and it works super, super good. For your vertical supports on the CASs, on the DCASs, on these super loops, you can use kite poles. I recommend if you get like, let's say you want to do a 22 foot high CAS or DCAS, get you a 27 foot pole. And because if you go all the way to the top of that with your wire, it's going to bend, right? So what I've done is I've actually started like taping down a pulley at about 22 feet up. So it's not at the top, it's not going to bend. And you have that nice, good support right there in the middle. So kite poles are really, really good for that kind of stuff. Trees are fantastic. That's my front yard east-west super loop. It's trees that we have bracing that one on both ends. So definitely something, if you have a lot of trees in your yard, that you can take advantage of, especially if you have a lot of room that you can space them out between, and you have really tall ones that you can get really high up there. Mine are 15 by 50. I've also done the 22 by 70 or so, 20 by 80. Those work really, really well. I'm going to put a pin in this here. We're going to pause on the antenna convo. We're going to do a quick top of the hour alert. We're going to DX on some of our challenge frequencies here, and then we'll come back in the next hour here and do some more talk about antennas. Let's go to our next challenge frequency here for the night. That is 920 kilohertz.
DX Central Live top of the hour alert.
Here's our noise source that we have here.
I used to be the lead singer of Brass Flag. But what you might not know is I now
Right now we have this on our shortwave central Kiwi. Let's take a look really quick. That's that big 25 by 72 foot CAS antenna. Let's take a really quick look at our local DXE one here at the house. And it's not rolling. This one has 3 antennas. This has a CAS. It's a 20 by 70 southeast CAS. We have that 15 by 56 foot super loop in the front yard, the east-west super loop.
Tight budgets.
Okay, and we also have a mini whip, PA0 RDT mini whip, which we'll be talking about that here in a few moments as well.
Our service members and their families who have already sacrificed so much. Their duty is to our
Take care, Neil. Appreciate you being there, Kaz.
Make sure no military family.
Always love seeing you in there, man.
Learn more at asymca.org.
This week, 7 out of 10 of us had a cup of coffee. 3 out of 20 of us played Wordle, and about 1 in 100 visited an emergency room.
This is our east facing CAS. Right now it's facing 83 degrees.
We're ready for you today and every day. We're here to qualify.
The sports leader for Central Arkansas is AM 920, KARN Little Rock, a Cumulus media station. You're listening to the Mark Winkler Show. This guy has a piece of great freezer. What the hell did you just say? Winkler. The flowers and of the Infinity Sports Network. Live from Milwaukee, here's Mark Winkler.
And let's check 930. I forgot, that's slop from 940. We're going to look at these frequencies here at the top of the hour on the map to see what might be there for everybody. Question from David on the CAS. What kind of pole can you use? You can use a tree if you have a tree. I've got one right now in the backyard. I have a little electric fence. Those little things you screw in for like electric fence to set the wire on. I've got one of those up about 15 foot high in a tree, and my apex. That's my apex for one of my CASs. So the wire goes through that. You can use these kite poles. Let's see, Hawk. One of the providers. There's a bunch of them out there, so you can definitely do your research on which ones are available that might be best in your price range or whatever. But this is an example of one of these windsock poles. They also have some other ones as well. These specifically these kite poles. Is it? That's probably on another thing. Anyway, you can check out that website. They have they have different sizes for these windsock poles. I would, again, if you're going to go that route, I would just recommend getting something that's taller than what you're actually wanting to do. So if you're wanting a 22 foot height, get a 26, 27 foot tall kite pole. And just put it up at 22 foot on there. Don't put it at the top. I've done that for years. I tried just putting the wire as high as I could, and it bent those poles over, and eventually they just snap. These that I've got up now, I've got a pulley that I got. It's like a plastic pulley from Amazon. Put some rope on it, put that around, tighten that down at the 22 foot high mark, put some tape around that so it's secure, so it's not going anywhere. And then that's my apex. And then that also allows me to have a nice seat for that wire to sit on. It's not rubbing up against anything that can break it. So, yeah, the apexes for super loops or Kazs, trees are fantastic if you got them. Just look at the layout of where you have and what might work for you for the directions you want. And then the kite poles. Real quick, we're going to get into this antenna conversation here. We did hear KARN on 920. 930 is a little bit more of a difficult one because we have some locals here. Oops. On 940 that make that one a little bit difficult. So we're going to look at this here in a minute on the map and see what different options we might have for folks to chase after, especially for some Latin DX. But I do want to take some more time here to finish up our conversation on antennas. For those of you who have to split out, we'll have this on the podcast this weekend. You can also watch the replay as well. So talking about one more thing about those Kaz and super loop antennas, I recommend what you can do is if you are, like, let's say you're using trees, look at your orientation of what you might have, right? For your trees. Okay, if I take it off, what direction do you want to look at, right? If I take it off in this direction, I can put my apex on this tree over here and things like that. So just kind of space or spec out what options you might have for what directions you want. So for me, I find, for instance, my northwest southeast Kaz that I have is right along my fence line, right? So I can use my fence line as kind of like pushing it up against there. For the Kaz antenna, you're going to want to have that bottom wire about a foot or 2 or 3 off the ground. Just keep in mind for every foot that you go above the ground with that bottom wire, you're losing a foot in vertical height. So if you have it 22 feet up and you've got that wire a foot off the ground, your apex is actually only 21 feet up. Okay. Keep that in mind. For the super loop, you can not only can you lay that bottom wire on the ground, you can bury it under the ground if you want to. I've got mine in the front yard buried. My east-west super loop, the wire is buried, so I don't have to bring it up for mowing the grass or anything like that. And it's in the front yard, so insurance companies don't like that. People trip over it. Well, I buried that sucker and the feed line as well. You mentioned feed lines. 50 ohm is fine. That's what I use. I think 75 ohm would be fine as well, especially if you're like hand winding and transformer. The 75 ohm, like RG11 or RG6 quad shield. I wouldn't use like straight RG6. I would use something that's a little less lossy, like RG6 quad shield or RG11. If you're going for 50 ohm feed line, I use RG8X with direct bury jackets, and it works really, really, really well. I've had no problems with it so far. Knock on wood. Also, Jeff Immel in the chat. Jeff.
California.
Not the right. This one. Notorious. Jeff is a big one on using Cat 6, Cat 5 cable as a feed line, taking the twisted pairs and using that. I'm actually going to experiment with that for the first time with my next antenna that I'm going to be putting up here in a bit, which we'll talk about here in a second. So you can, whatever works best for whatever you have, try to get something as low loss as possible. Again, 50 ohm, I like the RG8X. 75 ohm, I like the RG6 quad shield or RG11. Those were really, really nice and low loss. RG11, if you get it on Amazon, you can get like the ones that has like the flooded gel, so that if something were to pierce the jacket or the outer coating on the coax, it'll actually just like seal that up with the gel inside. So I like that pretty good. And then again, the Cat 6, Cat 5 feed line, I'm considering trying that out for my next antennas. He's over here as Jeff is shouting the praises for Cat 6. And with that one, you just basically take the jacket and you've got all those twisted pairs inside. And so you're just taking one of those twisted pairs, and one of those is going to be for your ground wire. One of those is for your sky wire on those super loops or Kazs, and that's what you're connecting up to your box, and you're good to go. I don't have it with me right now. I'll show you guys on our next week on our next episode the boxes that I use for my transformers. When we do our transformer discussion, we'll actually talk about whether that's next week or not. But I'll show you how I use banana plugs for those, and it works so good. I used to use the terminals where I'd unscrew it and screw it on or wind it around the terminal. I found that over time was like a break point. I found that it was just kind of a hassle. So I like the banana plug approach because you just unplug it and then you're done. And they work really, really well. So I'll show you guys that when we do our transformer episode. Some other antennas that are good that you might want to try out. A lot of guys, Jeff is one of these, Sean's another. The beverage on the ground, the bog antenna. You probably heard us talk about the bogs. These are shortened beverages. A beverage is a full wavelength antenna. For AM, you're talking something on the order of 800, 1,000 feet or more. The longer, the better. And it's supposed to basically make that antenna resonant at medium wave. And it's super directional. It's terminated on one side, and it's super, super directional. And it's usually about 8 feet off the ground. Now, most of us don't have 1,000 some odd feet that we can work with. If you do, by all means, beverage it up and go nuts. Put one in every direction and put it on a Kiwi and let me DX off of that sucker. For everyone else, 1,000 feet might be a little hard to do, but you can look at something that's a little shorter, on the order of about 200 to 300 feet. That is something that you can put on the ground, and these are actually it's only 200 to 300 feet long, but electrically it's Jeff, twice as long as whatever the actual length is. So if you have a 200-foot bog, it's actually 400 feet long. A 300-foot bog is actually 600 feet long electrically when you have it there on the ground. And so you can get really, really great results with these bog antennas. Again, the kind of thing you're trying to do with these antennas is directionality, whether it's a CAS, a DCAS, a super loop, a flag antenna, which is like a super loop, but just oriented a little bit differently, or a bog or a beverage. You're talking about directionality. You're trying to give yourself all the signal in one direction and none of the signal in anything else, right? That's what you're trying to basically get. So with a bog, you basically, again, you're looking at what direction do I want? Do I want something in the south or the southeast or the north or northeast? And you're trying to determine, okay, this is the direction I want to go. So I'm going to put this so that my bog is oriented in the direction that I want. And again, you're going to have a termination side, which is going to basically be a ground rod. There's also a resistor you put in line in there as well. And then on the other side, you have your transformer, which I think in this case was, depending on how you are set up, I think it's either 4-to-1 or 9-to-1, depending on what you're feeding with. And again, these are usually unamplified. Now, I tried one, but I only had 100 feet, so it didn't work very well for me. I did hear Dominican Republic on it, which was a new country for me. So it works. The proof of concept is there, but I don't have enough room for a 200 or 300 foot antenna, so I can't do a bog here. Definitely don't have enough room for a beverage. Again, you're talking 800 to 1,000 plus feet. There are guys that do like 2,000, 2,500 foot long beverages, and they hear everything. They hear it all. And the longer those things go, the more directional they are. And there does come at some point, sometimes, depending on what you're chasing, kind of a diminishing point of return where you've gotten too directional and you've tightened that beam width down to it's just like very, very, very narrow. And that can be good if that's the direction you want. But if you're wanting something a little bit wider, like I want Brazil, not Sao Paulo only, right? I want Peru, not just Lima, right? So you want to have at some point, you want to have a little bit of a bandwidth there. So that's why I like things like the CAS and the DCAS and the Super Loop, because you can null that backside enough to get rid of stuff you don't want, but you still have a wide enough beam width off the front of that thing to still get you directional in that direction you're trying to get, but still not like cut off anything off the sides that you might still want. It's a really nice little compromise that you get there with those CASs and DCAS antennas, where of directionality, but not like so focused that you don't hear anything else other than that one direction. Right at 150 degrees, that's all I'm getting. Now, this brings me to my next antennas. We're going to talk about the vertical antennas. Now, here at DX Central, we have our PA0 RDT mini whips. You guys have seen me use it. It's in use right now on our DX Central Kiwi. I've got it about 45 feet up in the air in a tree, and it works really, really well. It's super, super quiet. You actually could probably tell it earlier when I was switched from my Super Loop and my CAS to the mini whip. It got much quieter. This is also a fantastic antenna down a long wave as well. It is amplified. It comes, if you order it from PA0 RDT himself, it comes with a little amplifier that you can, that'll help boost your signals a little bit. But really, it's It's just about getting it as high as you possibly can, as far away from noise as you possibly can, as far away from buildings, metal, anything like that. You want to get as far away from all of that as you possibly can. That's why I have it in a tree in the very, very back corner of my backyard, and it's at 45 feet up. I shot it with a like a PVC air cannon. Get up on a branch that was 45 feet up. Okay. Fantastic little antenna. Now, my next project is another vertical antenna. I've never really thought of a vertical antenna for AM because the ruling logic I'd always been told was that vertical antennas are noisy. The noise just comes right in on those vertical antennas, and it's I think because if I remember right, noise is vertically polarized. If I remember right, I think that's what it was. So it attracts, it's going to get those noise signals more because it's a vertical antenna. But what I've learned is there's actually a low noise vertical option that's out there. And I had originally come across this. I saw a YouTube video of somebody with an antenna here, and I'm going to see if I can pull this up and show it to you guys. Of a low noise vertical medium wave broadcast band DX antenna. Pause it here, and we're going to look at this together. So this is radio keeps falling. This is a DXer. I think he's up north somewhere. I can't remember where he is. So this is the basic premise, and for our podcast folks, I'll try to describe this for you. You basically have a piece of wire, 12, 14 gauge wire, and you send that straight up somewhere between 27, 30, 35 feet, somewhere in there. Now, again, you can use a tree for that, for your vertical support. You can use a kite pole or whatever you need to have for support. You can actually just like tape the wire to the fiberglass pole if you need to do that. Okay. Whatever will get this up and straight vertical. And so you've got this 27 to 35, somewhere in there, foot vertical. I'm using a tree. Then at the bottom of that wire, you have a matching transformer. And that matching transformer has either an FT140 or FT114 type J Torrid with either a 44-6 or 42-6 turn of magnet wire on it. And again, we're going to talk about winding transformers in an upcoming episode in here. But you'd have a little box that you'll want to weatherproof. And on one side, you're going to have your connector for your feed line, whether that is terminals for a Cat 5, Cat 6, SO239 if you're running a 50 ohm RG8X, BNC if you're running something with BNC, or if you have an F connector, if you're running like RG6 Quad Shield, whatever kind of feed line connection you need at the bottom. On the upper side, you're going to have either terminals or banana plug receptors, and your transformers on the inside connecting both of those sides up. You plug your vertical antenna into one of those terminals on the one side. On the other terminal, that's going to a ground wire that's about 7 to 9 feet in the ground, hopefully, and you're probably using something like 10 gauge solid copper wire to get down to that ground wire, and then the ground rod rather, and the ground rod goes into the ground. That's the other side, and then your feed line comes in on the connection side. So you're using like RG6 Quad Shield or whatever, and that goes back to your shack. That is the basic premise of this antenna. And I'm going to show you here what he has on his. We're going to let this play as we kind of talk. So what I'm going to be doing here is it's going to be about a 35-foot high antenna. And it's going to be straight up in my tree. And at the bottom, I was going to wind my own transformer, but at the encouragement of our friend Jeff Immel, Notorious. Jeff mentioned a amplifier that is available that will actually help the performance of this antenna. And so I'm going to actually put this. I can't link the PDF unless you have an external available link for it. Oops. You'll see how he has his ground rod in here. He has another vertical antenna that's on the tripod here that he's weighted down with rocks, which here in Louisiana that would blow over and like 2 nights. So, but you see these terminals on the side over here on this box. That's what I'm talking about. You have a terminal. Now you can either pause it here. He has these connectors on the ends of his wire. So this is the vertical wire going up. This is his ground wire going down to the ground rod. You can either put it through the little hole in here, or you have like a ring terminal that you can put on, or you can use banana plugs that plug into the top up in here on these thumb screw connectors. Either way, you connect one wire to the one connector, the other you ground to the other, and then inside of that box is your transformer, and then on the other side of that transformer you have, obviously 2 sides of your transformer connected to your terminals here on this right hand side. The other side is connected to your feed line, and that matches everything up. So let me pull up this amplifier. This is the high impedance antenna amplifier, the V3A from Tom Seeger up in Ontario. And Tom has his paper here. And for those of you in the Slack channel, just hit up Jeff or myself, and we're more than happy to share this. So you basically see it's the same thing we just looked at. You have a feed line connector here. You have your terminal connectors here. One for the antenna, one for the ground. This is the ground on this side. Here's your antenna for your vertical. And this actually has gain on it. So it actually helps boost those signals from that antenna and helps give you a nice quiet match at the same time. And it has a little demonstration here, a little guide of how you want to do this, how you would set it up. He also recommends a common mode choke in here as well, which I have to build out. But a common mode choke in here to isolate the coax and everything from that antenna to help cut down on noise as well. So this is something I'll be experimenting here with over the next several weeks, probably. My amplifier from Tom is on order, so hopefully we'll be here soon. I need to build my common mode choke, and then I'll be putting this antenna up and putting it on our Kiwi and seeing how it does, especially being able to compare that to the PA0 RDT mini whip. So from what I understand, this vertical antenna we're about to put up here is quieter than the mini whip and has more gain than the mini whip. Now that's going to be a tough thing to do with that mini whip at 45 feet. It's already, the higher those mini whips are, the more gain it actually has. So I'll be very impressed. If it can outgain a 45-foot high mini whip, that's going to be impressive. But if it's quieter, what that does, you guys remember from our conversations before, when you lower your noise down, you make an antenna quieter, you're increasing your signal to noise, or you're improving your signal to noise ratio. So now your noise floor goes down, your signals are all still up here, but those weaker signals that had been underneath the noise floor, well, if you lower your noise floor, now those signals are there and they're ready for you to be able to catch them and hear them. So that is what we're going to be doing here. Now this guy, he's also got a third antenna, and he's using these in the phasing system. This antenna he actually has on a crank up mast over here. You're going to see it. But the vertical is kind of sitting here on the side of his house, and he has this crank up mast here. It's actually kind of interesting how he does this. So again, he's definitely somewhere up north with the snow, because we don't have that here. Once maybe. And this has a lot of flex to it in this pole. And this is one of those fiberglass poles we talked about. I think he got his from DX Engineering or Universal Radio or someone like that. But you'll see him crank it up. And this is an AM DX antenna, vertical. He's got his wire connected, like taped down onto this fiberglass mast. And he just puts it up. Cranks it up. And so if you're in an HOA area, you need to be having something a little more inconspicuous, right? Or something that you can take down at times, this would be a good option for you. So whatever works best for you guys, whatever works best for your setup and your situation. Feed lines, again, if you're looking at 75 ohm feed lines, RG6 quad shield is good. RG11 is really, really good. I recommend with any feed line that you're doing direct berry jackets on them, just to make sure if it's going to be on the elements that it can tackle that. And they're usually UV resistant. For 50 ohm, I like RG8X. Also, Jeff is a big fan of the twisted pair feed lines and the Cat 6. So we're trying some of that out with our fiberglass or our vertical antennas, rather, that we're about to do here. So now there are obviously many more antennas out there. There are long wires. I've gone away from long wires just because they're noisy these days. And, you're typically looking like 50, 100 feet tops for most people or less. That's not really going to do anything for you. Not unless you have, if you have 50 feet, you have enough room for a 12 by 48 CAS. And you need a 12-foot painter's pole you can get from any box hardware store, right? For your vertical apex, a 12-foot painter's pole. And then you've got or you can order from Amazon. You've got your 48 feet in length. So if you have 50 feet for a long wire, you have room for a 12 by 48 CAS. All you need to do is provide yourself with a terminating resistor, which we're going to talk about that in another episode as well. And your 16 by 1 transformer, which we'll again do another episode on how to hand wind those. Once you have those, now you've got a serious DX machine. A serious DX machine. And it's within the confines of your space that you have available. So I tell everyone, I've abandoned the long wire a long time ago because it's not directional. It's super, super noisy. The gain's nowhere near what you need it to be. You need something that's matched, that's got some directionality to it, that has some nulling capabilities off that back side. You have that super nice tight direction on the front. You need something like a CAS or a super loop. And again, if you've got 50 feet, you can put up one of these antennas. So for those who don't have the 50 feet, you're probably looking at something like a magnetic loop or a vertical like we're looking at here. Or like, mini whip or one of these 35-foot some odd verticals. If you do have the 50-foot horizontal distance, though, especially if you have some trees that you can use for vertical supports, super loops and CASs, that's where it's at for me. If you really have some room, if you have 100, 200, or if you have about 200-300 feet or more, bogs and beverages, that's what I'd be using, bogs and beverages. If I had a bunch of room, I would have, I'd have 5 or 6 bogs in multiple different directions on the compass. And I'd put it in a circle and I'd switch between them as I needed to. And I'd say, let's check out south today. That's what I'd be doing, but I don't have that kind of room. So a 70-foot CAS is what we have, and it works tremendous. So we'll continue to talk about antennas in additional episodes of the show here, but I wanted to at least give you guys a primer here on some different options that can be helpful for you. Okay, now, I know it's late. Let's take a look, though, really quick at... let's take a look at our maps for our challenge frequencies, and then we'll wrap up. And I'm going to try to think about how to do this. Let me get down here. We're going to put this on here. There we go. All right, so let's look at our maps for some different stations that we can be targeting for, especially down south, especially down in Latin America, while maybe there's some residual energy in the ionosphere. So we're starting here on 910. Now, I talked a bit about already La FAMA down here in San Andres and Providencia. That's definitely something that I would highly recommend that you look for. They're easy to ID, and it is a separate country from Colombia, so that's an easy country to add to your totals if you're able to get a hold of them. So that's definitely one to look for. Also, Venezuela on this frequency. I don't know if they're still active. I don't know what to expect out of Venezuela radio stations these days, but when they're on, RQ out of Caracas on this frequency does get out pretty well. I've got a clip on our Sounds of Latin America page, on the resources page on our challenge website about RQ FM or AM out of Caracas here on 910 as well. So that's another one if you're looking for Venezuela, especially our East Coast folks. That can be one that you can try for is RQ. There's nothing really in Mexico. There's a station right on the border here, KRIO in McAllen, Texas, that does get out pretty well, but nothing in Mexico on 910. There is a station known in the past on 910 Metropolitana out of Cuba. That's pretty big. It's supposed to be a 75 kilowatt transmitter. I haven't heard them in a long time. Kaz mentioned earlier he hasn't heard them in a while. I don't know if they're still on or not. Cuban AM and FM stations have been kind of in flux recently, but if they are on, that's one you can try for. Some other stations that I know get out. If you'll notice one thing on 910 at night, especially, you have a lot of lower powered stations. There's not a lot of 1,000 watts or higher stations on 910. It's a lot of stuff that's less than 1,000 watts. So anytime you have a situation like that, this is a fantastic frequency for graveyards, or gray line rather. So sunset, sunrise, 910 is a great frequency for that, because you're going to have these stations that during the daytime probably broadcast 5,000 watts, 10,000, 20,000 watts, and then they swap down. So if you can get them while it's still, they're on their day power, or once they switch over to their day power in the morning, that's a great time to do some DX. So following the gray line on 910 is going to be in your best interest. Some other stations that I know get out really, really well over the years to be TMZ in Dorchester Terrace, South Carolina gets out well for our East Coast folks. WJCW in Johnson City, Tennessee as well. WEPG in South Pittsburgh gets out pretty well. WSUI up here in Iowa City, I know Rick talks about them. They do get out. I haven't heard them here, but they do get out fairly well. Some other ones I'm trying to remember from when I was further east. I think those were most of the ones that I had heard here. WLTP, I think in Ohio gets out pretty well. WPFB in Middletown, Ohio gets out pretty well. So our East Coast folks, yeah, there's a couple different options you can explore here. This was one, WFDF, Farmington Hills, Michigan. They're a 50 kilowatt daytime station. At night, they're 25 kilowatts, but they're super directional. So I would definitely try for them if you're going to be pointing your antennas to the north, for those of you with directional antennas. Out west, KSIM gets out pretty well in New Mexico. I'm trying to think who else out here might be. Those are a majority of the ones. So there's a lot of little stations on 910. So Gray Line's going to be a good friend for you. If you guys have any recommendations of ones that you know get out really well on 910, especially if you've been at multiple locations and heard some ones consistently, then definitely give those a shout in the chat as well. Let's look at 920 now. 920, first looking down south into South America. This is where Radio Nacional in Paraguay is. Radio Nacional del Paraguay. 100 kilowatt signal. I've heard them here in Mandeville. They are heard every once in a while, and not just during aurora nights. Okay. So if it's a nice quiet night, not a lot of noise on the band, not a lot of thunderstorm activity going on with lightning crashes, this is a good one to try for. My recommendation is take a look at their sunrise time, their local sunrise time, and you're going to want to find what that is in UTC, and then you want to start looking about an hour before that. Anywhere within that hour, especially that last 10 minutes right before their sunrise, that's when their signal is going to peak for you, okay? So looking about 10 minutes to an hour or so before their local sunrise here in Paraguay, that's the best time to try for them. So you'll see this gray line over here as it gets closer, as it gets to like right about in here, somewhere right here along the coastline, around Montevideo, Buenos Aires, things down here. That's when I would start really focusing on Paraguay. And as that continues to move over, you've got about a 10 to 20 minute window where they're going to boost up and be up top on 920. So that's one I highly recommend. Let's see what else we have here. Again, another Venezuelan that's supposed to be there, Nueva Esparta. I don't know if they're still on the air or not. I have never heard them before, but that can be one that you can try. Let's see. Some other stations here in Central America, Mexico, XERE in Salvatierra, they get out pretty well. XESTRC here in Campeche, they get out actually pretty well for considering they're only 1.5 kilowatts. I don't know about this Progreso station in Cuba, if they're still on or not, but that could be a possibility. As we get a little bit closer to home here, KARN in Little Rock does get out very, very well, so that's a good one. WGKA in Atlanta, we heard that one underneath KARN earlier, so that's another good one you can try. WLIV up here in Tennessee, they also get out pretty well, so some different ones that are available here for you. KYFR in Shenandoah, Iowa. That's another one that gets out pretty well. I know I've heard them here. So there's CKNX. I think that's the one here in Wingham, Ontario. That's an option for you. CFRY up here in Manitoba, they get out pretty well. So some different options you can try for there on 920. Now let's take a look at 930 to finish us up here. Not a whole lot down south in the South America, Central America region. There are a couple of stations. There's one here in Mexico, though, XESAME in Saltillo. I don't know if they get out really well. I know I've heard them here, but I haven't seen them reported a lot, but you may give them a shot. I, again, don't know what to expect from the Cubans here in Rouleau. They may be an option for you. If they're there, though, listen for the RR Morse code. WFXJ here in Jacksonville gets out very, very well. WKY in Oklahoma City, they get out very, very well. WTAD, this is the one. I hear these guys all the time down here. Quincy, Illinois, they get out extremely well. KWOC here in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. WSEV in Sevierville, they also get out very, very well. Even I've heard this one in Michigan. I don't hear Michigan stations very often, but WFAT in Battle Creek, Michigan, 5 kilowatts, that is one that also gets out pretty well. Our West Coast folks will have to help me out because I don't know what is good out here on the West Coast, but those are some options on the East Coast, folks, and the central part of the U.S. Up in the Northeast, I'm sure there's also some as well that get out pretty well, but these are the ones that you can see here in white that I've heard here from New Orleans, so I know kind of how they do. So there you go. All right. That's going to do it for tonight's edition of DX Central Live. Hopefully you found some information that's helpful and informative here for you. Go out there 9:10 to 9:30, hit those frequencies hard, get those logs in. We've updated the challenge page, so you should be able to go ahead and start submitting your logs now. DXchallenges.com. Make sure you register and you can start submitting your logs right away. To our sponsors, the National Radio Club, nationalradioclub.org, International Radio Club of America, IRCAonline.org, and the Spectrum Monitor magazine, thespectrummonitor.com. To all of our patrons, our producers, executive producers, associate producers, we thank you all for your support as well. Go to patreon.com/DXCentral if you want to be part of the fun in Studio C, get that early access to videos, exclusive live streams we'll be doing here soon, and a whole lot more. So thank you all for being here. It's been a fun night. What a great week of DX. Can't wait to do some more with you guys next week. I know we didn't get a chance to look at the FM stuff. We'll do that next week. We'll look at that Aurora propagation that was there from the Aurora outbreak this week, and also look at the Tropo forecast as well. So good evening, my friends. Take care, 73, and best of DX.
This has been the DX Central from the Static Podcast. If you are interested in sponsoring this podcast, let us know by emailing sponsors@fromthestatic.net. If you have a story to share for our Stories from the Static series, send those to our email address, stories@fromthestatic.net. Be sure to join us for our live DX live stream every Friday night at 2345 UTC, 1845 Central Time on our YouTube channel or at dxcentrallive.com.
The DX Central from the Static podcast is copyright 2025, Lloyd Van Horn, DX Central. All rights reserved. No portion of this podcast may be rebroadcast or reused without the express written authorization of Lloyd Van Horn and DX Central. Be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, as new episodes will be posted regularly. Join us next time for the DX Central from the Static podcast.